Right on GB News.
Tensions mount between America and China after the suspected spy balloon is shot down over US airspace.
Very good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on the 5th of February, and this is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Angela. Here are your top stories this morning.
President Biden says military action was needed for what he called a national security threat, whilst China's foreign ministry insists it was an overreaction to a simple weather balloon.
Former Prime Minister Liz Truss claims that she lacked support when in the job and says her radical tax cuts weren't given a chance to succeed.
And police searching for missing Nicola Bulley say they've found a key witness as her family dismisses their claims that she fell into the River Wire whilst walking her dog.
Well, as always, of course, you can join in our discussions by emailing us with your thoughts to gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Well, let's start with the suspected spy balloon that's been flying over US airspace. It has now been shot down by a fighter jet off the coast near South Carolina.
President Biden says he ordered it to be taken down over water for safety reasons as it became a national security threat.
China's foreign ministry insists it was for scientific research and called the US action obvious overreaction that seriously violated international conventions.
Well, joining us now is former advisor to Clinton and Bush administrations, Steve Gill. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning. And just when we think the world can't get more bizarre, we now have apparently spy balloons circulating around, apparently in Latin America as well. You just can't make this stuff up.
No. Well, you see, it is a spy balloon. Of course, the Chinese are saying it was nothing of the sort. So what exactly are the Americans hoping to retrieve? What information will they get from any of the wreckage that they managed to pick up?
Well, I hope that the retrieval of the wreckage won't be in water that's too deep to recover it. More importantly, I hope that there's been some technical assessment during the time that it was careening around the United States from Canada, Alaska to Canada to Montana to the southeast and then off the coast. Hopefully we had the technology to be kind of intercepting whatever information was being sent back to China through the atmosphere and had a pretty good idea of what they were actually doing before it got really too far into the United States. I suspect that we do have more knowledge of what it was sending back to China than they're letting us know right now.
I mean, let's be honest, it would seem an extraordinary thing for China to do, especially knowing that Mr. Blinken was meant to be on his way to Beijing to try to resolve US-Chinese relationships.
Yeah, the Chinese-U.S. relationships are at as low a level as they've been in a long time. There's really not active conversation. There really is a lot of tit-for-tat kind of economic battles going on and increasing threats to Taiwan by China. This was clearly provocative, and I think the question is whether or not the military in China were the ones that dispatched this balloon, or whether President Xi was aware or gave it the go-ahead at some point. There is sometimes a split between the political leadership and the military leadership in China, and again, there are probably more questions than answers at this point.
I mean, I think the Chinese insisting that it was just a weather balloon, you want to know, why would the Chinese be interested in the weather over America? So I wonder if you can tell us, Steve, how sensitive the areas over which it was floating really are. I mean, what are the Chinese likely to have discovered about America that they didn't know already?
Well, first of all, when you look at the carbon footprint of China and the pollution that we see in Beijing, if they want to check the weather, they want to check the effects of global warming, they ought to start at home before checking what's going on in the United States. I think, though, that they came over Alaska. We've got military bases there. They came over Montana, where we've got some of our nuclear weapons. And then it really did this kind of swath through mid-America, through Missouri and Tennessee and the Southeast. There are military bases, there are business interests throughout that whole region. So if it was sort of globally sucking up information, getting more than perhaps they get from TikTok, I think there is some concern. I think it's valid.
On the basis that, and we may be wrong, but on the basis that the US discovers that they were right about what it was and what was going on, where does this leave the relationship moving forward? Because, I mean, something is going to have to be done. I mean, this standoff can't continue.
Well, the Chinese will continue to deny that it was anything other than a weather balloon. They're never going to come forward and say, yeah, we were spying on you. Keep in mind, they shot down a U.S. spy craft that was about 70 miles off their coast in international waters just a couple of years ago. So this kind of, we're trying to look in your backyard business happens on both sides. It's just you don't usually use a balloon that's so visible from the ground. Frankly, I think there are a lot of concerns over what the U.S. government was hiding in this process. They apparently were tracking the balloon, whether it's spy or weather, from the time it was on the Aleutian Islands right off the coast of Alaska all the way through Canada. And it wasn't until regular citizens in Montana looked up in the sky and said, what the heck is that? That the government was forced to admit what was going on. And then you have this bizarre incident, I don't know that it's gotten much coverage there, of an explosion in the sky in Montana after the expectation was this balloon had moved on into the southeast U.S. First of all, it could have been an asteroid, hitting into the atmosphere that could have exploded. But we've got this great video of this explosion in the sky. I'm trying to figure out what people in Montana are doing, just, taking random pictures of the video of the sky, just hoping something happens. Because who just sits around taking video of the sky?
Steve, are you suggesting that perhaps the American government should have taken action a lot sooner before it had the opportunity to actually get over the mainland, as it were?
Yeah, when you're in the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska and then really into Alaska, there's not a lot of people out there, so there wouldn't have been any damage from the debris. Montana, is pretty much wide open spaces in the west. They could have done a lot to take it out long before it got into the continental U.S. and then kind of traipsed through Missouri and Tennessee and Georgia and down into North Carolina. So they had plenty of opportunity to do something early. Now we're having Biden claim he wanted to take it out, Wednesday, but the military didn't want him to do so. And I think you're going to see some oversight by Congress figuring out what did Biden know and when did he know it. I'm not sure we're going to call it Balloongate at this point, but we do need to know what was known and when it was known.
So you do think there is a potential for a bit of a scandal? We don't want to build it up into something that it isn't. But you think something nefarious has gone on?
You had U.S. military officials standing up and saying, "Oh, we don't see any real threat to this." And I just think if you had Russia send a balloon over Ukraine, it would have shot down immediately. I think if we sent a giant weather balloon, this thing was like the size of 3 buses. If it was, with 3 of those double-decker buses in London size going over into Beijing, I think they would have shot it down instantly. So there's something that just seems sketchy about the whole deal, and we ought to get better answers than we're getting at this point.
Yeah, and they're talking about it as being a balloon, which gives you the idea that perhaps it's just a sphere that's filled with helium. But it was actually presumably filled with a lot more interesting stuff than that.
It's a lot bigger than the red balloon in that scary horror movie, It, featuring the clown. Literally, it's about the size of 3 large buses. And, that's why people from the ground were able to see it 50, 60,000 feet in the air. So it was ginormous, as my sons would say.
Yeah. Well, look, it's fascinating to see those images of it coming down as
Yeah.
well. Steve, for now, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you this morning.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
I wasn't given a realistic chance. Well, that's how Liz Truss has been assessing her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
Yeah, she's written an article for the Sunday Telegraph and she discusses a potential return to frontline politics and opens up about her radical tax-cutting budget, which contributed to her downfall.
Well, joining us in the studio to discuss her claims and the possible route back to Downing Street is Conservative councillor Holly Whitbread. Holly, you've had an opportunity to read this,
yes.
Obviously. I saw a wonderful quote about her, which said that Truss is mad, but she was right. Rishi Sunak is sane, but he's too conservative. Where do you think we stand on this? Does she have reason to make these claims that she was misunderstood, or is it a bit more serious than that?
So I think Liz was right in terms of the need for growth in our economy, but that's also something that Rishi believes in and is working towards as well. All Conservatives believe in low tax, including this government. But I think what Rishi is doing is taking a far more pragmatic approach than Liz. And actually, in the leadership election, I'm on record as supporting Liz. But where I was always shocked is, whilst I agreed with the low tax diagnosis, it didn't come with the efficiencies, the potential cuts and the bigger picture that you expect to see. So I think she went too far, too fast, which was what was said at the time. And actually, there just wasn't that pragmatism which we need in politics, particularly when we've got a cost of living crisis.
I mean, it's interesting that, she does say she shoulders some of the blame, though obviously she's putting most of it on other people. But it's that, it all boils down to, doesn't it? A lot of it was down to the 45p tax rate. Because everybody was shocked about that.
Yeah.
That seemed to come out of nowhere. And though there may be good reasons for doing it, if that hadn't have been done, she might have survived all this, mightn't she?
Yeah, I think that did come as a real shock, especially considering the climate that we're in, where people are really, really struggling. So I think where Rishi's administration has done a lot better, and certainly settling the markets is a start, is actually focusing first and foremost on the most vulnerable in society, so really tackling that cost of living crisis. But you're right, that 45p proposition came as a real shock and I think was the beginning of the quick end.
She's been quiet since the downfall. She's come out with this interview in the Telegraph today. She's planning to speak quite forcibly against China in a speech that she's about to give. Is she making a play for power again, do you think? Or is she just trying to re-establish her political credibility?
I'm not sure whether she's making another play for number 10. I think that's probably unlikely. But I suppose she's still an MP and she still wants to have a voice in Parliament. And I think, first of all, there is a voice for talking about low tax and growth. We've seen Simon Clarke come out in recent days about this new growth group in the Conservative Party, which I think is an interesting initiative. And I think on China, she's right to start the debate. We've seen what's happened with the last news story. But actually, Rishi's government have kind of increased the rhetoric against China. So I think both of the issues she's talking about are relevant, and I suppose it gives her a space to talk about, but I don't think a return to number 10 would be appropriate anytime soon.
But it's interesting, with that strong rhetoric on foreign affair issues, which, of course, she was Foreign Secretary, wasn't she? She sort of knows her stuff. However, in terms of, even dealing with our closest neighbour, France, she actually created problems rather than mended any fences. We do seem to, on the immigration issue at least we've got France a bit more on side now.
Yeah, you do have to be really careful with diplomatic language, and you don't want to ramp up tensions too much unnecessarily. And actually, in Rishi's speech when he first became Prime Minister on China, he spoke about the end of a golden era, which I think is the right approach, and to take decisive action when it is needed. But you do have to be very careful with your language.
What sort of support has she got in the Commons at the moment? Because she did have quite an interesting group of people around her when she was bidding to become Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Have they stayed with her? Are they going to support her again, do you think? Or is she out on the limb a bit on her own at the moment?
I don't think she's got support as an individual, so there's no kind of bring back Liz as PM going on from as far as I can see. But I do think there's support around this growth agenda and the low tax agenda. Fundamentally, these are Conservative principles, and we have seen pressure on the government to lower taxes quicker. So I imagine she'll be part of that pressure group. But I don't think the support is specifically towards her, but more the policy ideas.
I wonder, because you said you supported Liz in the leadership campaign.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like, now, and tell me if I'm wrong, But it sounds to me like you said, well, yeah, we did that, we tried it. It's time for a grown-up now.
Well, I regret that we got into the situation where we had that leadership campaign, actually, personally. But actually, I supported Liz because ideologically I agreed with what she was saying. I believe in low tax. I think it's the best way to grow our economy and actually support the most vulnerable by giving them more money in their pocket. But from what I saw in her short time as Prime Minister, she just did too much too soon. As politicians, you've always got to be pragmatic. And I think Liz did lack that pragmatism. So I was disappointed in that very short tenure. And actually, I think Rishi's brought stability.
But despite the fact we are in a high tax economy, high tax and low growth actually at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a really difficult situation, but we do have to remember we spent billions and billions of pounds on COVID. So it's a really difficult time. And I think Rishi's doing the right thing to try and stabilise the economy, bring in some money through tax, and hopefully, as we build up to 2024, the election, we see them taxes coming down again.
Yeah, but she is talking about wanting tax cuts, smaller state, in other words, giving much more responsibility to local councils, and a hawkish foreign policy. I mean, she's got very specific ideas about the way she thinks the government should be run at the moment, even though she's on the backbenches rather than in the Cabinet Office, hasn't she?
I suppose she needs to find a kind of a role for herself as a parliamentarian. I think, as I say, I think she's right to pursue and push for tax cuts, but actually the government have already said we want to deliver tax cuts when the time is right. And I suppose the time will be right once we see inflation halve, which is that kind of key goal of the government, because we need that to kind of get the economy going again.
OK. Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.
Oh, I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think? Is it all about pragmatism? Do you think she stands a chance in, well, not in getting back to number 10, really, but in having her voice heard a bit more?
You do have to question whether or not anybody would want to go back into number 10, don't you?
I have to say, question her credibility, because she had a go and it all went wrong for whatever reasons. Exactly. It went wrong. But anyway, let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Let's bring you up to date now with what is going on elsewhere. Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of short-changing Scotland's NHS by £17.6 billion since 2008. The Scottish Tory finance spokeswoman says the First Minister of Scotland oversaw the staggering underfunding. Pre-pandemic figures show that from 2008 up until 2020, spending per head on health in Scotland compared to England decreased from being 15% higher to just 3% more. The Scottish Government says it remains fully committed to supporting the health and social care sector.
The Business Secretary has accused Ofgem of having the wool pulled over their eyes by energy suppliers in the wake of the prepayment meter scandal. Grant Shapps says the energy regulator should have listened to its customers and is giving companies a Tuesday deadline as to how they'll be compensated. Follows an investigation by The Times which revealed how vulnerable customers had prepayment meters wrongfully installed in their homes.
The US has shot down a Chinese spy balloon. It's suspected of carrying out surveillance of sensitive military sites. Fighter jets brought it down over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. Earlier yesterday, 3 airports were closed and airspace restricted in the southeast of the country after President Joe Biden vowed to take care of it.
Officers investigating the disappearance of Nicola Bulley are appealing for a key witness who they believe was in the area that morning. CCTV shows a woman wearing a yellow coat pushing a pram where the 45-year-old mother of 2 disappeared. Nicola was last seen walking her dog in Lancashire on Friday. Her family are questioning the police theory that she fell into the river. Well, let's bring you more on Nicola Bulley, actually, because as we were saying, and it's crucial, because yesterday we had that clip of the police officer, didn't we, saying that they believed it was an accident, she'd fallen into the river, and they didn't want anything else discussed because it was upsetting for the family. Well, the family have said there is no evidence whatsoever behind that claim that she fell into the river, and they want other ideas discussed.
So we're now joined by Head of Content of the Lancashire Post, Andy Moffat, who can tell us a bit more. Good morning to you, Andy.
Good morning.
There are so many theories being proposed at the moment. Tell us where the police actually stand, because Excuse me, I think I was about to sneeze there. My apologies. It's not only the family that are questioning the validity of what the police are saying, but many members of the public also.
Yeah, I think the police are still, they're continuing to say that their working hypothesis is that Nicola fell into the river, and they are continuing to say that they are asking members of the public not to speculate on anything other than that. And they're continuing to ask people to come forward with any information.
I mean, it is a very concerning situation, isn't it, Andy, that the police are putting forward this theory, and as everyone is saying, that they don't seem to be putting forward any evidence to back it up.
Yeah, I think that's right, and that's why they're asking for people to come forward with any dash cam footage, particularly around the Blackpool Road, the Garstang Road area, and that is what they believe one of the areas that's perhaps not as well covered by CCTV as the rest of that particular area. So that's really one of the key focuses at the moment, is any dashcam footage from the Blackpool Road, Garstang Road area. They're hoping that might give them some information.
Sorry, Angela, I was just going to say, but that disproves their own hypothesis, doesn't it? I mean, they're saying we believe she went into the river and we don't want any other speculation, and yet they're looking for dashcam footage, which presumably would show that she had, either voluntarily or in the company of somebody else, left the area.
Well, I mean, that's yet to be seen, isn't it? I mean, the information we're getting from the police is that they believe she fell into the river. Now, as you rightly point out, the family, particularly Nicola's sister, say that they don't think there's any evidence to support that. So I think it's important that perhaps members of the public don't speculate, but the family have their own opinions, and they're very much vocal about that.
Andy, what is the importance of this woman in the yellow coat? Why do they think that she suddenly has become an important part of this investigation?
Yeah, she's somebody that they're looking at as somebody in this missing 10 minutes. That the police are very keen to sort of build up a picture of what happened in the 10 minutes after 10 minutes past 9, when Nicola was last seen. So there was an appeal yesterday. It looks like late last night she has come forward and spoken to the police. We don't know yet what she's been able to tell the police, but they have said that she has now come forward.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed, Andy, for joining us. But, that is a story that has exercised so many members of the public and certainly our viewers as well.
I mean, within all of it, there's just these big questions, isn't there?
Too many questions.
It just doesn't add up.
No.
And the police saying, I mean, and I think it's critical that the police are saying one thing and the family saying the opposite.
And later in the programme, I should tell you, we're going to be speaking to a forensic expert, somebody who is saying that there's a different way at looking at the evidence that they actually have. And I think that will be fascinating to hear what his take on this whole situation is.
Yeah. But coming up for you in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking about one of the most common illnesses that you probably never heard of. Tell you more after the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's a sunny Sunday ahead and dry for most of us, albeit a little bit chillier, a little bit less mild than it has been through some recent days. The reason for the calm weather is this whacking great big area of high pressure that is going to be very high indeed. Could see pressure of around 1048, 1049. So although that's not quite record breaking for February, it is very high nonetheless. As a result, very calm conditions across the bulk of the UK. Yesterday's fronts now cleared away towards the south, and then there's plenty of winter sunshine across much of the UK. Now the sunshine is going to be a little bit hazy at times. That's because there will be some high-level cloud pushing through, but we are going to have mostly light winds. Despite the fact that there will be plenty of sunshine and light winds, temperatures on paper are actually down a couple of degrees compared to yesterday, but in the winter sunshine it should still feel relatively pleasant. As we go through the end of the day, there'll be little change across much of England and Wales, holding on to the clear skies here. Further north, though, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture, and the cloud will be thick enough for a few spots of rain, and we'll see some blustery winds developing too. Across England and Wales, under the clear skies and with light winds, temperatures are going to take quite a drop, so a fairly widespread frost. Could see even towns and cities falling below freezing, and some freezing fog patches to watch out for first thing Monday morning here as well. As we go through Monday itself then, a bright start for much of England and Wales, but you can see that cloud is gradually going to push its way in from the northwest, so many places turning somewhat cloudier. Staying quite cloudy for Scotland and Northern Ireland, still gusty, blustery winds at times and a few spots of rain. Perhaps some brightness towards the north of Scotland, and here that's actually where the highest temperatures are likely to be on Monday, could just about get into double figures. Elsewhere, temperatures similar to today, but with the cloud and the slightly blustery winds, perhaps feeling a touch less warm. As we go through the rest of the week, there'll be some further changeable weather across northern parts, staying drier, brighter and sunnier further south, but quite chilly at times with some overnight frosts and some further fog to watch out for.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela.
And we were just talking about Liz Truss. She's given an interview in the Sunday Telegraph saying, well, not that she wants to come back, but making her voice heard again. Anyway, it sparked a bit of a split between you. Graham says, I would like to see Liz Truss come back as Chancellor.
Whereas Simon says, I lost my rental property because of Liz Truss after owning it for 22 years. The mortgage was raised by £700 a month. She needs to disappear from politics.
Oh, Terence in New Malden says, tax cuts were the right thing. It was just a bit too much all at once. Jeremy Hunt's approach will remove incentives to invest. High taxes are not Conservative policy.
And John in the Blythe Valley says, two headlines from the Liz Truss era, tax cuts for the rich and more immigration. Crazy. Several million Tory votes lost in the blink of an eye.
Oh, well, if you've got a view, GB Views at gbnews.uk. Now, campaigners are warning that the NHS has no plan in place for those suffering with what's been called the most common condition you've never heard of.
And it's up to 100,000 Brits who are believed to suffer with the one you've don't know about, because of its name probably, functional neurological disorder, or FND, which interferes with the brain's communication with the rest of the body.
Well, we can now speak to Tom Plender, who has FND. Good to see you this morning, Tom. Look, I mean, what is FND? What is FND? What does it do to you? And how long has it taken you to get a diagnosis?
So FND is, I mean, it's the simple way of putting it is it's a problem with the signals between brain and body. So the brain is sending incorrect signals to the body. It's referred to as a brain network disorder. That's what a lot of the latest research is showing. What happened to me was I was a professional musician. I was studying at the Guildhall School of Music in my 20s, and I was doing an enormous amount of work. I was doing gigs every night of the week. I was very active on the UK jazz scene. And unfortunately, because of the amount of playing I was doing, I developed overuse injuries in my wrists and knees, which seemed to trigger FND. And then I ended up embarking on what amounted to about 12 years of seeing doctors to try and find a diagnosis and treatment. And every doctor I saw said, oh, it's all psychological, it's all in your head, which was really unhelpful. During that time, I deteriorated. The symptoms are muscle spasm, muscle stiffness, a lot of very severe chronic pain, nerve pain. Eventually, I was referred to a neurologist called Professor Mark Edwards, who'd been researching the condition. And he said to me, it isn't psychological, that's much too simplistic. Actually, what you've got is a problem to do with the way your brain controls movement. And then I had a lot of physiotherapy rehabilitation, and I am in recovery now, and I'm starting to be able to play the piano again, which is one of the instruments I play, and I'm working back towards hopefully being able to play drums again, which is my main instrument. So it's been a hell of a journey. But
12 years, 12 years for no one to know what is happening to you must have been devastating to you. And what I find extraordinary is that, as you say, Dr. Mark Edwards, he's the professor of neurology who has identified exactly what it is you've got. But apparently 50% of health boards are not treating it, and 9% of health boards are not even accepting new referrals, all of which suggests that a very large proportion of the health service are not even recognising what you've got. That must be horrendous to people like you. And 100,000 is not a small number, is it?
No, I mean there are thousands in the UK, and in fact globally it's a massive problem, and it has been described recently in one of the leading neurological journals. It was described as a crisis for neurology, because there is an extent to which this condition has just been brushed under the carpet. The reasons for that are very complex. I mean, part of it is this idea, which has been around for a very long time, that FND is psychological, and I think there's huge stigma around the condition, particularly among medical professionals, and as a result, patients are often dismissed. Unfortunately, this is a very flawed idea that doesn't really have any evidence to back it up, and a lot of the recent evidence using fMRI brain imaging is showing that this is in fact a disruption of brain networks. So we have a crisis, and there is no national treatment service on the NHS for FND, and that's what, as campaigners, we're really trying to fight for. We're trying to tackle the stigma. So few people have heard of FND. It turns out, as common as Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis. So, and I think the second most common reason for consulting a neurologist. So this is a crisis, definitely, and it's something that's been brushed under the carpet for years. So we need an NHS care pathway for FND, and we have to get the information out there, the new research showing this is a real condition, and people are suffering terribly at the moment with it.
How important is it then? I mean, how difficult is it going to be to get that pathway, and how important is it? I mean, even just that we're talking about it this morning, actually, and there'll be plenty of people like me and Angela who'd never heard of it before, but are now at least getting some understanding of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a parliamentary meeting actually this week that the charity FND Hope have organised. So a lot of the leading researchers, neuroscientists, FND doctors like Professor Edwards, who's my neurologist, the guy who basically saved my life, to be honest, are going to be there. They're going to be meeting with politicians, and we're hoping we can get, policymakers to start taking this really seriously. And I know that is now, certainly they're talking about implementing it in medical training now as well. So if you are now just starting your medical training as a doctor, you will actually be taught some of the new research into FND, which is obviously incredibly important, because so many doctors don't really know what it is, and a lot of them have these very old school ideas about it just being psychological, and the patient's just a kind of hypochondriac, and get rid of them, because they're going to waste the doctor's time. That's just not true. So yeah, it's hopefully the parliamentary meeting will be a positive thing for us, and we'll keep campaigning. Yeah. But,
Tom, it's one of the Sorry, Tom, but it is one of the problems for doctors that there are so many different symptoms that it's perhaps difficult for them, if they have not been trained in FND, to put all of that information together and recognise that's what it is, because you get seizures, spasms, chronic pain, and therefore they look at the individual things rather than saying collectively, this is what this is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really excellent point. And I think to be sympathetic to doctors, FND is an unbelievably complicated condition. As you say, it you can result in all sorts of different symptoms. I mean, because of this disruption to brain networks, the range of symptoms that can be produced are vast. So that is a massive problem, and that's why we need more training. And certainly there are definitely different types of FND. So the type of FND I had was very much the movement disorder type. So I had problems with muscle spasm and balance and coordination. Some people just have seizures, which look a bit like epileptic seizures. So yeah, there are various different types that are sort of only just now being identified. Yeah.
The mend, and hope on, I think it's February the 4th, isn't it, that you're going to meet the MPs, that you actually get some positive response. Tom, thank you very much indeed for being with us this morning and enlightening all of us.
Well, and it's knowledge is power, isn't it, with these sort of things? And the more, if you can go to the doctor and say, could it be FND, even if they're not familiar with it, it gives them something to research, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, anyway, let us know if you're affected by that or have concerns. Still to come, though, you don't want to go anywhere, because we've got a very special newspaper review for you this morning. Husband and wife from opposite sides of the political spectrum.
That'll be fun.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. Do you have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock. Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
6:39, very nearly. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela. Good morning to you.
Let's take a look at today's front pages. Well, The Telegraph has an exclusive with Liz Truss, within which she credits her ultimate downfall to the left-wing economic establishment.
For the Sunday Express, attention drawn to the thousands of lives being put at risk as a decision is made to drop a long-term cancer strategy.
In the Sunday People this morning, there's an exclusive with the first victim of disgraced Met officer David Carrick to reveal her identity.
The Times, Sunday Times, gives light to Rishi Sunak's threat to take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights.
And finally, in The Observer, we're told there is a zero chance that the Tories will meet their pledge of 40 new hospitals by 2030.
So let's go through the papers now with two regular guests, but we very rarely have them on together. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, who are a married couple on different sides of the political spectrum, which I think is fascinating.
And I'd love to know what goes on at the breakfast
yes.
when there's a big political story.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
But I'll tell you what, let's steer clear of politics for the first one, because the Mail on Sunday, Claire, looking at Nicola Bulley up in St Michael's.
This is one of the most horrendous stories I think I've seen for some time. 9 days now this lady has been missing. And the police seem to want to lead the investigation into a certain direction, suggesting that she has slipped into the river, and that's sort of where they're resting all of their hopes. But there's nothing to back that up at the moment, and I think the family are quite right to keep looking at the police and saying, well, I don't think that's the entire answer. There is so much more that needs to be looked at.
But what struck me in this was, and I've said this a few times, it was this comment from the police, the investigating officer on this, saying, yeah, this is our working hypothesis. Yeah. We shouldn't speculate about anything else because it's distressing for the family. Well, the family want us to look at something else, don't they?
Well, of course they do. And I think it's all very fine for the police to say, please don't speculate on this. But whilst they're already speculating themselves, then people are going to pull that to pieces, because you can only imagine the family's absolutely frantic nature at the moment. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be in their position, to not know, to have the police saying one thing with no evidence to back that up. And I think that they have been incredibly dignified, but I'm so glad that they're keeping the pressure on.
Yes, but also, Nigel, so many members of the public are questioning the way that they're interpreting the so-called clues that they have.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, what the police are now looking at her Fitbit to see if they can find the movements that she made. I think Stephen's right, that it's not about distressing the family when you start having theories. The family want to know answers.
They want the truth.
They're not happy with a rather pat explanation, which it seems, about the idea that she might have fallen into the river. And without any, if you haven't got a body, if you've got no evidence of that, it may be the most likely, the likely thing that happened. But I do think the family have a right to say, well, hang on, let's look at other lines of inquiry, and the police have a duty to follow those lines of inquiry.
But it's also things like they were saying, well, went in after a ball. Now, where on earth have they got that from?
She had a Springer Spaniel. Springer Spaniels live in the water. If the ball had gone in, the dog would have got it.
Oh, absolutely. And you wouldn't have been able to get that dog out. And also, they have found the dog, haven't they?
Yeah,
and
the dog was dry.
The dog was dry, and anybody that's had a dog or has been around a dog knows that a wet dog stays wet for some time.
And stinks.
And absolutely stinks. So
but it feels like 2 and 2 making 5 each time.
It does.
Yeah. Well, we have got a result, as it were, from the Sunday People today, when the first of David Carrick's victims, has actually revealed her identity.
Yes, a very brave thing to do, to waive your anonymity and come out. Of course, David Carrick is being sentenced for the 48 rapes he committed while a police officer.
Or is that the figure now, 48?
48, yeah. It was 12 victims, but 48 rapes. And he comes up for a 2-day sentencing this coming week. And Darcia Nunes da Silva, his first victim, the first victim to come out and identify herself, what she's saying is, I'm naming myself, I'm putting myself out there because I want other women to come forward. She thinks there are people out there who are David Carrick victims, but they haven't shown themselves, which is always the way that often there's a whole argument about anonymity in rape trials, but the argument for also naming the defendant, as well as women coming out, it does encourage other people to come forward.
It only
which is
takes
quite
one
important.
brave person, doesn't it? And others will then come forward.
Oh, absolutely, and we can't leave this case just to not have the full details come out. I mean, it's horrendous when you hear 48. You suspect there are more, unfortunately, and I feel incredibly sorry for those women who are suffering in silence with very little support and so much concern that they wouldn't be taken seriously. How awful is that when you have a police officer, somebody you are supposed to trust? And I hope that more women come forward. I really do. I hope that there aren't women, but those that are, I really do hope this gives them the courage to do so.
And it's worth bearing in mind, if you happen to be one of those people or know someone who's been affected by this, you can come, coming forward like this doesn't mean you have to go in the papers.
No,
you
you can do it anonymously.
Completely anonymously. You will be protected. Let's talk politics then. To the Observer. We're not going to get 40 new hospitals by the end of the decade, apparently.
OK, is anybody surprised by that comment?
Well, we should be getting some.
You should. We should. The community should. However, only 10 of these have had full planning permission granted to them.
Right.
And 13 of them have no planning permission whatsoever. Anybody that has had access to the planning system knows that it is lengthy and complicated. I think one of the most extraordinary statistics that came out of this in the Observer piece is that 284 hospitals in England are older than the NHS itself. So those buildings are absolutely creaking. They're pre-1948 and they are falling down around people's ears. And you have to admire the chief executives of some of these trusts who go around and they patch up as best they can. We all may look at it and say that is a disgrace, it needs to be fixed, but they are doing the best they can with some pretty aged fabric and buildings. But I'm not surprised, and I hate to say that, and that is a surprise to most people, but 40 new hospitals was a bold statement.
Did we ever believe it in the first place? It just seemed to be so outrageous, didn't it?
Well, they were never going to be new either. I think there was an awful lot of fudging around with the details. A lot of these were existing buildings that were going to be modernised, which is fantastic, and I'm not against that at all, but you can't call them new if it is an existing building. So I just put this to one side as one of those little Boris Johnson conference campaigns, and when the devil comes down to the detail, it is lacking.
And maybe what he meant by new hospitals was the refurbishment of the old ones. Yeah. Because he's never actually been prepared to come out and say precisely what he did mean where this was concerned.
No, the trouble about Boris Johnson, he was never really a details man. So suddenly you thought, hey, there's a great figure out there, 40 hospitals, yep, I'll sell that to the voters. It sounded good. But the first question was, 40 hospitals? These are big, big projects. You're talking about over £500 million to build a hospital, so there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. Can we have a look at the Jangleys?
The Janglies.
Ginoglies.
The Ginoglies.
The Ginoglies.
We refer to Claire on this, who's got the pronunciation absolutely off pat.
Ginogly.
It is Ginogly.
It is.
There you go. I got it right.
I've never said it so much.
I love Ginanglies.
Ginanglies.
Yes, the Ginanglies. No, the Ginoglies.
Anyway,
talking about.
whatever this Tory MP's
name is. They're in the mirror
is.
today, aren't they? Yes.
It's a shocking story.
Yeah, this is about his wife, in fact, who employed a couple of basically servants, housekeepers. And what then happened was there were a couple of tribunal cases in which it was found that she'd unlawfully withheld wages from them, which is how all this came out. Some of the detail in this story was absolutely astonishing, because it seems that the MP rather liked his avocados laid out in a particular way, and there was instructions handed down to tell the housekeepers exactly how to put the avocados out. So, for instance, if there were 2 soft avocados in the fridge, 6 have to go into the bowl. But if there are no soft avocados in the fridge, then 8 go into the bowl. And if you have less than 8, you put them on the shopping list to go and get some more. And this was all sort of set down as a load of instructions, and the feeling of the women involved is they were treated virtually like slaves. And there is this kind of feel about this couple, one of which, you know, he was a former Justice Minister, Tory MP now, being entitled, uncaring and very dismissive of people that they see who are beneath them.
And very picky too, because
picky.
Anyone that's ever bought or eaten an avocado knows that you buy it and you think, I can eat it tomorrow, you open it and it's solid. I mean, knowing when an avocado is ripe is an art in itself.
Indeed it is, yeah. Squeezing away there to you test it out.
It's all very odd. On that note, we've got to leave it there. We will talk about Liz Truss and Prince Harry in the next hour, if we can, because that's quite interesting. See you then.
Well, it is an interesting headline on the front of one of the papers today, so we can't miss that, can we? But let's bring you up to date with what is going on today. Police are appealing to the missing aristocrat who has gone missing with her newborn baby and partner. Police say it is believed that they've been camping in the Sussex countryside and are appealing for them to get in touch. Constance Martin and her family went missing in early January, and a £10,000 reward has been offered in the hunt for the trio.
The head of the Royal College of Nursing has called on the PM to make a new pay offer in order to avoid next week's strikes, or this week's strikes, I should say. RCN leader Pat Cullen says a meaningful offer could avert the action. The NHS is facing what many are calling the biggest day of strikes they've ever seen, as tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance staff in England are set to walk out tomorrow and Tuesday.
Residents who were evacuated following a security scare in a town in Derbyshire are now able to return to their homes. A number of people had to leave their houses in Belper, and nearby roads were closed after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosive offences. Derbyshire police said they found a number of suspicious items, but it's not being treated as a terrorist incident.
OK, let's lighten things up for you, because music's biggest night is back in Los Angeles as the pandemic upended the last few ceremonies.
Tonight's 65th Grammy Awards marks a welcome return to familiar form for the annual awards show.
Attendees will make their way to the Crypto.com Arena in downtown LA for a night of performances and some snubs and surprises.
Beyoncé, Adele, who led this year's nominations with 9 and 7 nods, are nominated for the evening's top prizes, including the Marquee Record of the Year category. And they're in pretty good company.
Oh, yes, we're in good company as well, because Stephanie Tetchy is here. Morning,
Good
Stephanie.
morning.
So what's happening? Who's in line for what?
Oh, gosh, well, it's all eyes on Beyoncé. So she's up for a staggering 9 nominations, including Best Album of the Year for her album Renaissance and also Song of the Year. But she faces stiff competition from Adele, of course, for her album 30, which is also up for Album of the Year, and also Record of the Year for Easy on Me. And they also face other contenders, including Harry Styles and Lizzo. But Beyoncé, she just needs to pick up 4 awards tonight, and she would be the most decorated artist for the Record Academy.
Really?
So that means she'll be the most awarded artist of all time in the Grammy's 65-year history. At the moment, the title's been held by a conductor called George Scholti, who has... thank you, Angela. Thank you, Angela. I know.
He's a classical music conductor,
yeah,
George
so
Scholti. Yeah.
Currently he's on 31 awards, so if she just picks up 4, it will definitely be her night. But as we know with most of these awards, you can rack up so many nominations, but on the night you can be snubbed. It was famously in 2017, Adele picked up Best Album over Beyonce, and she said, no, Beyonce should have won. So you might see that tonight. In Beyonce, it might not be Beyonce's night, but if she just gets the Magic 4, she'll be well.
I'm very happy.
Yeah, she would have cemented her status, but, you know, like, compared to the Brits, where the Brits is facing a lot of controversy about losing their gendered categories, the Grammys done this about 10 years ago, and it's been fine. So they've had a diversity force, track force, who are making sure that there will be no controversy in terms of categories and that everyone's being fairly represented. But you never know what to expect on the night. There is always a few ruffles of feathers that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to be a two-horse race, or are there a couple of dark horses there in the wings, as it were?
There is a Spanish artist called Bad Bunny, and he's up. Bad Bunny. All the youngsters love him. All the youngsters love him, and he's up for Album of the Year, and if he wins, he will be the first Spanish artist to win that award. So I don't think everything's really set in stone as people think, you know, the favourites. There'll be a couple of upsets, a couple of wins, but also we have new awards that have come into play. So we have things such as Best Spoken Word, which is a new category.
Oh,
we also have
I could win that one.
Yeah.
Imagine if I won a Grammy.
How does that work? In other words, you speak the song, or is it a spoken
It's like
book?
a poetry, like an audio poetry. So maybe you might win a Grammy one day. But then also there's Songwriter of the Year, non-classical.
Is that new?
Yeah, these are all new awards. Yep. And then we have Best Alternative Music Performance as well. So there's new categories. Tonight there'll be 75 awards that will be given.
A marathon.
Yeah, marathon awards. But also there's going to be interesting presenters, including the First Lady, Jill Biden. She'll be presenting an award tonight, yep. Viola Davis, Billy Crystal.
Viola Davis.
So it's all about the celebrities as well who will be giving out the gongs tonight. So it'll be quite interesting.
So we do need a non-controversial night, because we're still in shock over the Oscars and that.
Yeah, and Grammys are really entertaining because it's, you know, it's on American soil, so you got all the Hollywood celebrities that will be there. It's going to be on tonight at 1 a.m. Well, 8 p.m. EST. But if anyone wants to watch it, they have to screen it live on Paramount Plus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all about the screen.
Yeah.
The streaming, isn't it?
It is all about the streaming.
Well,
but
you're gonna have a late night.
I am going to have a late night. I always like watching the Grammys because it kind of gives a good idea of how the Brits may go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Stephanie, we'll see you a little bit later on. Thank you very much indeed. We've got all the headlines heading your way in just a moment, straight after the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's a sunny Sunday ahead and dry for most of us, albeit a little bit chillier, a little bit less mild than it has been through some recent days. The reason for the calm weather is this whacking great big area of high pressure that is going to be very high indeed. Could see pressure of around 1048, 1049. So although that's not quite record breaking for February, it is very high nonetheless. As a result, very calm conditions across the bulk of the UK. Yesterday's fronts now cleared away towards the south, and then there's plenty of winter sunshine across much of the UK. Now the sunshine is going to be a little bit hazy at times. That's because there will be some high-level cloud pushing through, but we are going to have mostly light winds. Despite the fact that there will be plenty of sunshine and light winds, temperatures on paper are actually down a couple of degrees compared to yesterday, but in the winter sunshine it should still feel relatively pleasant. As we go through the end of the day, there'll be little change across much of England and Wales, holding on to the clear skies here. Further north, though, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture, and the cloud will be thick enough for a few spots of rain, and we'll see some blustery winds developing too. Across England and Wales, under the clear skies and with light winds, temperatures are going to take quite a drop, so a fairly widespread frost. Could see even towns and cities falling below freezing, and some freezing fog patches to watch out for first thing Monday morning here as well. As we go through Monday itself then, a bright start for much of England and Wales, but you can see that cloud is gradually going to push its way in from the northwest, so many places turning somewhat cloudier. Staying quite cloudy for Scotland and Northern Ireland, still gusty, blustery winds at times and a few spots of rain. Perhaps some brightness towards the north of Scotland, and here that's actually where the highest temperatures are likely to be on Monday, could just about get into double figures. Elsewhere, temperatures similar to today, but with the cloud and the slightly blustery winds, perhaps feeling a touch less warm. As we go through the rest of the week, there'll be some further changeable weather across northern parts, staying dry, brighter and sunnier further south, but quite chilly at times with some overnight frosts and some further fog to watch out for.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I wasn't given a realistic chance. Well, that's how Liz Truss has assessed her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
Morning to you, it's 7 o'clock. It's Sunday, the 5th of February. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Angela. These are your top stories.
Former PM Liz Truss claims that she lacked support when in the job and says her radical tax cuts weren't given a chance to succeed.
Police searching for Nicola Bulley say they found a key witness as her family dismissed police claims that she fell into the River Wire whilst walking her dog.
Tensions mount between America and China after the suspected spy balloon is shot down. President Joe Biden calls it a national security threat, whilst China says it's an overreaction to a simple weather balloon.
What do you think? Any thoughts? Very welcome this morning, whatever you want to talk about. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Well, I wasn't given a realistic chance, according to Liz Truss, as she assesses her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
Yes, she's written an article for the Sunday Telegraph and she discusses a potential return to frontline politics and opens up about her radical tax-cutting budget, which, of course, contributed to her downfall.
Well, joining us in the studio to discuss her claims and her possible route back to Downing Street is Conservative councillor Holly Whitbread. Holly, some are saying that although the market's reaction was, frankly, a meltdown to what she wanted to do, there are others, perhaps, who see it differently. What are the whispers in the Commons and among MPs at the moment about the basic idea for low taxes for growth was right?
Well, I don't think that Liz Truss will be making a return to the Cabinet or indeed as PM anytime soon. But I think there is an appetite to see tax cuts in the Conservative Party. All Conservatives want low tax and they want to see growth in the economy. So I think there's certainly pressure on the government to try and see a reduction in tax. Although I think when Rishi took over, there was a real need for stability after what was a very unstable time, and we have seen the market stabilise. So hopefully in the next budget we will see a move towards lower taxes.
I mean, is there a concern at the because of inflation? Everyone says inflation's the big problem here.
Yeah.
Is there a concern that if you lower taxes, it increases spending, and therefore pushes up inflation. Is that the concern?
I think there's got to be a balance. I mean, the IMF earlier in the week said actually we should have had tax cuts sooner, but it's all about balance. I mean, the problem with Liz Truss's mini budget was she just went way too far too soon, and she was proposing unfunded tax cuts without the things to back them up, so cuts or a change in civil service.
It is interesting that some of the people I've spoken to reminded me that it was only quite recently, I can't remember by which year, but actually quite recently, that we paid off the debt for all the money we borrowed when we came out of the Second World War. Now, Rishi Sunak says he does not want to pass a major debt on to future generations. But should we perhaps be considering that actually we should borrow and take our time to pay the money back? Because we have done it before.
Well, I think Liz Truss did have a theory that actually we would hold off that debt and make it payable over a longer time in terms of the pandemic debt. And we do often forget what a huge cost that was to the economy, billions of pounds. So we do have a responsibility to pay that back. And I think Rishi is right to make sure that we're not passing a huge debt on to future generations and ensuring our economy is sustainable for the longer term.
See, I'm fascinated by your view because you are someone, I wonder if people watching and listening are in the same boat, who you backed Liz Truss. You wanted Liz Truss to get into number 10. But now you're clearly not keen to see any sort of return.
No, I mean, well, I regretted seeing Boris go, but you know, I believe in low taxes. I'm a Conservative. But what I didn't like about the very short period where Liz Truss was Prime Minister is she just went too far too quickly. I think that there was a little bit of a lack of sensitivity about the kind of cost of living crisis we were going through, and it needed a balanced process. Yes, we needed tax cuts, but we needed to have the stuff to back it up.
But then
as well.
do you think that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has not gone far enough and he's not going quickly enough? Has he gone a bit too much the other way?
I think Rishi's done a really good job to stabilise the economy. So we have seen the markets calm down, which is important. But actually what we do need to see now is a little bit of optimism and hope for the future, particularly as we kind of approach the next election, whenever that will be, probably in 2024. We do need to start seeing the foundations for a lower tax economy again.
But considering that Liz Truss has been very quiet since she left number 10 Downing Street, she's making quite an interesting splash in the Telegraph today and the speech that she's going to be making in Japan in a couple of weeks' time. So where do you see her in the future? Sitting on the backbenches, being a very supportive backbench MP, or do you think she still has that ambition to have a bit of power?
I'm not sure about any return to frontline politics, but I think Liz Truss's background is in think tanks and in the ideological side of politics. So I think there's certainly a space. We've got this new Conservative growth group talking about low tax and growth, which I'm sure she'll play a key part in the debates around that, but I don't see a return to frontline politics.
OK. Holly, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Let us know what you think.
Thanks for joining us.
About all of that. It's interesting, isn't it? Perhaps she's someone who should just come up with some ideas and let other people implement them.
Yes, we've had quite a lot of comments already about her, actually, haven't we?
Yes, Dean in Dover says Truss lasted less time than a cabbage.
I think it was a lettuce, wasn't it?
It was a lettuce, actually.
It was a lettuce,
yes. It was a lettuce.
And Sarah says Liz Truss should really stay away from politics for her own good. It's embarrassing she's still clinging to the being a left-wing victim agenda. Incompetence is the answer. Well,
if you've got
just say it as you see it, Sarah.
Well, yeah, if you've got a view that agrees or differs with that, I'd love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Let's bring you up to date with some of the other headlines this morning. It's 7:06 and police are appealing to a missing aristocrat who's gone missing with her newborn baby and partner. Police say it's thought they've been camping in Sussex and are appealing for them to get in touch. Constance Martin and her family went missing in January. A £10,000 reward has been offered in the search for the trio.
The Nurses' Union has called on the Prime Minister to make a new pay offer in order to avoid upcoming planned strikes. The head of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen, says a meaningful offer could avert the action. The NHS is facing what many are calling the biggest strike day that the service has ever seen, as tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance staff in England are set to walk out tomorrow and Tuesday.
And a key witness in the search for missing mum Nicola Bulley has come forward. Officers appealed for a woman seen on CCTV in this yellow coat pushing a pram in the area where Nicola disappeared last Friday. They've called speculation and abuse on social media towards the witness is totally unacceptable.
Residents who were evacuated following a security scare in a town in Derbyshire are now able to return to their homes. A number of people had to leave their houses in Belper, and nearby roads were closed after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosive offences. Derbyshire police said they found a number of suspicious items, but it is not being treated as a terrorist incident. Police searching for the missing mother, Nicola Bulley, say they have spoken to a key witness as her family dismissed the police's claim that she just fell into the River Wire while walking her dog.
Yesterday, a police helicopter was seen in the search for Nicola over St Michael's, where she lives with her partner and her 2 young children.
Well, we're now joined by our national reporter, Theo Chekomba. Good morning to you, Theo.
Good morning. Bright and early here in St Michael's on Wire. The investigation into the disappearance of mother of 2, Nicola Bulley, continues. Indeed, as you mentioned, last night there was an appeal put out by Lancashire Police looking for a woman wearing a yellow jacket who was seen walking on this road where I am. It's called Garstang Road or Blackpool Road, and she has now come forward and she could be a potential key witness. She's one of a number of people the police have spoken to in the last few days, and they hope that this can help them to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And the problem the police have at the moment, and indeed some of the friends, are saying people should refrain from coming up with scenarios which may or may not have happened, as it's not helpful in terms of the investigation. But the police are reiterating and saying if people do have any information, any dash cam footage or CCTV, particularly if you live in a row of houses like where I am this morning, then please do come forward and get in touch with them on 101. Or if it is immediate, do contact 999. Yesterday in the afternoon, there were some search teams along the riverbank. And as you mentioned, there was a helicopter in the air as well. So searches are ongoing on the ground and in the air as well. So they are working non-stop, and they say there currently isn't a time frame really of how long this is going to go on for, but they're going to continue doing all they can to come to some sort of conclusion and give some news to the family as well.
OK, Theo, thanks very much indeed. Well, we're joined now by forensic search and rescue specialist Peter Faulding. Peter, it's really good to see you this morning. There does seem to be nothing but speculation at the moment, which seems to be one of the key problems. But everyone you talk to says this seems really odd. Is it, from your perspective, is this an unusual case?
This is totally unusual. Good morning, Steve and Angela. I've worked on hundreds of these cases. We deal with them for the police across the whole of the South East. We're the official dive team for the police across the South East. The amount of searching that's gone on in this river, I would have thought she would have been found by now. Look, normally when a person drowns, if they are left a number of days, we've dealt with, say, many of these incidents, and they don't move very far. This is not a fast tidal river, so I would have expected her to be found by the police divers by now. Apparently sonar's been used, but that's only as good as the equipment or the operator using them. We could have scanned this river with our equipment within a day and seen if there was a body there. It's as clear as that. And none of this rings right to me. My belief is she's not in the river at all.
Peter, an awful lot of people are coming up with their own thoughts as to what has actually happened here. You're a forensic expert. Taking all the clues that you are aware of, what are the conclusions that you would draw from what has possibly happened here?
I personally think this phone could be a decoy. I mean, we dealt with a drowning a couple of years ago where a gentleman went into a river in Ripley. His dog was screaming by the riverbank when we got there, when we arrived, and it was howling and literally pointing exactly where he was. He stayed with his owner. And the phone on the bench, I mean, normally someone would have a phone in their hand, and if they, walking around, if she was making a call. Look, Nicola knew this area, and even the clothing, no one spoke how deep the water is actually at the bottom of the bank where it went in. I've heard rumours it's 18 inches deep at the edge. I mean, and the clothing she was wearing was not woolly clothing that absorbs water quickly. She seems a very fit person. Why were there no screams? Why were there no marks? And what I am surprised about is that the area hasn't been sealed off as a crime scene or for forensics. People have been walking past the bench. There's no police tape up. This would normally be sealed off as a crime scene. So potentially CSI, crime scene investigators, can go in and see if there's any microfibers, evidence, slip marks down the bank. And I don't believe that has actually happened here.
What about... Sorry, I was just going to say, because loads of people emailed in yesterday about Fitbits. We know she was wearing a blue-banded Fitbit, and people are saying, well, can't that be used? Now, admittedly, older Fitbits don't have GPS tracking and things. They just log steps. But there is at least a possibility, isn't there, that could reveal some information?
Probably, Stephen, it's not my field, so I won't comment on that. But there's a lot of information stored on digital things. But at the end of the day, Nicola was last seen in the top field by the witness. There's nothing to say she couldn't have been kidnapped and dragged and put in a car and taken away, and someone could have put a mobile phone by the river as a decoy, or Nicola wanted to disappear herself. It just doesn't ring right. The amount of searches that's gone on in this river, the body, if there was a body in there, is no way going to go all the way down to the sea, not with us. That current. I mean, we fish people out all the time of rivers, and they just don't move that far unless the river's in flood. And this river is clearly not in flood. It's not moving fast enough, and it will drift very slightly if a body did. And normally, at this time of year, a body will normally resurface between 6 and 8 days. As the body decomposes, it bloats, and the body comes to the surface. It's normally found by dog walkers if they're not found, and that's what I'm surprised about. And it's just they're doing a great job of searching, and that's the police divers. But I'm just wondering why. I mean, we've offered our equipment up there and our expertise, if required, to the family. And if they want it, we could search this river in a day and say Nicola's there or she's not. It's as simple as that.
So you think that the police have been clearly quite hasty in coming out with this conclusion?
Yeah, definitely. I've never heard of this. It's a very odd one. I mean, normally the police say we're keeping an open mind, Angela, on this type of case. I think it's a bit foolish coming out that she's gone in the river. Let's look at all the angles here. They'll be looking at cell site analysis with mobile phones. That can take a few days to do. But my big worry is the way it wasn't initially sealed off as a sort of a crime scene, so they could potentially gather more information on this.
Peter, have they actually asked you to come and help them? And, I mean, you clearly would be prepared to do so if they did.
We would do it absolutely free of charge. I mean, we got millions of pounds worth of equipment. I work with the police every day. We're called in from Kent, Essex, Surrey, Sussex, Thames Valley and Hampshire. We've got the highest hit rate for finding bodies in the country. We would happily go up tomorrow morning and help them search if they come. I'm not going to turn up. I don't do that. That's unprofessional. If we are contacted by the police, we would do it free of charge for them and help this family find Nicola. At least our equipment, which is the best in the world, could actually scan that river and say, I could say categorically she is not in that river very, very quickly.
Well, look, I mean, let's hope someone takes you up on that. What about if the family asks you to do it privately?
We would, as long as the police gave us permission to attend, because I wouldn't want to. I work with the police every day. They're working extremely hard. It's very, very easily criticising the police. I'm not criticising the police. Some media reports of that. I'm certainly not. But we're offering our equipment to assist with this operation to speed up the search. And I say I've got the high hold the police in the highest regard. But it needs wrapping up, this one, Stephen.
Could they be? I mean, it's all this speculation, which is very difficult. But the fact that they've come out with a working hypothesis, which, I mean, as you say, and as we know, is very, very strange, the way they've done this. Is there... I mean, are they keeping their powder dry, perhaps, on other things they're looking into?
they will be looking into many other things. They'll be looking at other people within the family. They'll be looking at people who live locally, whether there's any sex attackers who live locally and things like this. I mean, we don't know. Nicola can be kidnapped and being held somewhere against her will. She might hopefully she'll still be alive. She may have just wandered off. But it's unusual because I think because they've actually come out and said we believe she's in the river, and then Nicola gets found somewhere else, the media would have a field day with them. So I think it's a bit of a just with a mobile phone by a river, that's not good enough evidence for me. This needs a lot. We need to clear that river, and then that can be ruled out completely, and then the focus can go elsewhere. If she's in the river, I'd be very surprised if she's not. Clearly, if the equipment used, if she's found in that river, has not been effective.
Interesting. Well, let's hope that someone does take you up on that offer, Peter. But thank you very much indeed for your analysis of the situation. As we say, when we know from the people responding here to our programme, there are so many theories at the moment and so many questions still being asked about the way in which the evidence that the police have is being interpreted. Thank you.
Peter, thanks very much indeed. It's isn't it interesting to talk to an expert?
Oh, yes.
And you have to say, if someone is offering... Clearly, it's a business. They get paid for doing this. Yeah. He's saying, I will go up and we can clear that whole stretch of river in a day and we will do it free of charge. The police are crackers if they don't take him up on that.
If they don't take him up. And also, isn't that the one thing that the family need to know? That would bring some kind of closure, one way or another, to the family. Well, she's either there or she's not. And Peter is saying, basically, I can answer that question.
Yeah, well, it would close off that one avenue.
It would.
For them.
It would. Oh, gosh. That was... I'm
really
so pleased we interviewed someone who was a forensic specialist there. It was brilliant. Lots more to come on the programme this morning, of course, including all the sport with Aidan McGee. Gosh, it was a busy day yesterday. And why Scotland are celebrating breaking a 50-year-old record against England in the Six Nations rugby.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. Do you have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind. And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela.
Well, time now for the sports. Aidan McGee is here to take us through what's been kicking off yesterday. What a day in the rugby.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call for England. Angela and I were discussing it just a few moments ago. Sometimes in sport, you think that because there's a new coach that you get that automatically get that bounce. And I think England yesterday against Scotland at Twickenham were given a little bit of a reminder that there's a long way to go. And Steve Borthwick reflected on that, and it exactly the same afterwards. He said that we're going to have to suffer before we get where we want to go. So he's coming in as part of a new coaching duo alongside Kevin Sinfield, who made his name in rugby league with Leeds. They fought hard, though. I think there was none of the booing that we saw in South Africa, against South Africa in October, which hastened the departure of Eddie Jones to Australia. But yeah, I do think that he's only had 11 days together with his squad. He didn't make wholesale changes. There was a bit of a different look to the team, but the same axis in the midfield with Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell, the captain, was there. They were kind of bullied out of their stride really by Scotland. And ominously for Scotland's opponents in the remaining part of the tournament, their coach Gregor Townsend, who we think might retire after the World Cup, he says there's more to come.
Yeah.
He said they weren't even at their best.
But the scoreline tells you, I mean, it was 23-29, wasn't it? The scoreline tells you it was a cracking good game.
Oh, it was an excellent game, yeah. And England were actually leading going into the second half. So, yeah, I do think there was plenty of signs of encouragement for England. As I say, it's not as simple as just getting a new coach in there and thinking all the problems of the past are going to go away. He's integrating new players as well. We saw Manu Tuilagi wasn't involved. I mean, that's a big thing for the England players who've been used to having him around for the last 10 years. And so you have to evolve, you have to move on. And with that comes suffering. And then we had the situation in Ireland, in Wales as well, where we thought that Ireland might come unstuck with the roof over the heads of the stadium at the Principality. The new coach, the Warren Gatland factor, coming in with Wales. But no, they blew Wales aside. And that sets things up nicely for Ireland against France next week. I think the winner could come from that tournament, from that match there. But Scotland looked so good yesterday, especially with their main guy, Duhan van der Merwe, who ran over 2 tries. I mean, he looked reminiscent of Janalomu, God rest his soul.
But they're on a roll now, aren't they?
Oh, without doubt, yeah. Without doubt. And I think that's 3. They've retained it now. They're twice in a row, the Calcutta Cup, first time since 1972.
Yeah.
So they're in a crest of a wave, and I think that they've got Wales at home next week, which I think they will beat. I think they'll beat at Murrayfield. I think that will put them in. They'll go into their third round of matches the week after, or possibly the week after that, thinking there's still a bit to do.
Yeah.
But we've got a fighting chance here of going on to win the Six Nations. Don't forget, Scotland have never won the Six Nations.
But they've got to come up against world number 1 Ireland, and they've got to come up against the French as well.
Absolutely, yeah, they have. But it looks like a really good tournament. I don't think England are going to get anywhere close to winning it, but hopefully they will learn something. And who knows? We've seen Ireland peak too early before World Cups. Maybe England are just doing the opposite, and maybe their coach can make a bit of an impact in time for the World Cup later in the year.
You never know.
Let's
have a look at the Premier League, because Sean Dyche, talk about new managers, Sean Dyche has done pretty well.
I know, it's back to the basics. I mean, he was the only factor yesterday because they didn't sign any players.
No.
Didn't sign any players. They were meant to sign players, didn't sign any. In contrast, Chelsea spent nearly £300 million. Now, they're competing at the opposite ends of the table, but to go home against Arsenal, who lost 1 game all season, they just got about them, Stephen. They just did not let them move. And worrying me for Arsenal, ominously, I never thought the Premier League was over anyway. We've got too much football to play. But when any of their opponents in the next few weeks will look at that template and think that's how you beat Arsenal. On the road, up north, they didn't really like it. They didn't like it up them. I know it's a horrible cliche, but they didn't. They didn't.
They were just Dad's Army.
I know, but they were hassled out of possession. It was the basics. It was a set piece by one of his old players, actually, Sean Dyche, who he really brought through at Burnley. He's got 3 players in the squad who he worked with at his previous club. And as I say, I never thought this title race was over. I didn't think people don't look at the table enough sometimes in the middle of the campaign, because Everton are now on equal points with the team who are fourth from bottom. So they were no way were they marooned. And I think Sean Dyche went in there. He said to his players, "Listen, it's just a start, but we've got something to build on now." The first 2 matches, Arsenal at home and Liverpool away, they were meant to be, look, write them off, we're not going to get anything. But goodness me, Liverpool in dreadful form, losing Wolves yesterday, 11 points off the Champions League. Why can't Everton go to Anfield next week and pull off a brilliant result? It could happen.
Oh, well, interesting. What's happening today?
We've got Tottenham against Manchester City, so City could cut the gap from 5 points to just 2 points, but they don't travel well to Tottenham. They haven't won at the new stadium since Tottenham moved in there in 2019. Again, not as simple as saying, look, Arsenal lost yesterday, so over to City, they should go and win at Tottenham. Tottenham have got plenty of things of their own to prove at the moment. Antonio Conte's not going to be there because he's undergoing surgery. Historically, Tottenham tend to do well. They played 10 days, or I think it was 18 days ago, at Man City. Man City won that 1-4-2, but it was a different game today at White Hart Lane, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've got to have, for family reasons, I've got to keep me fingers crossed for Manchester City.
Bit of City in your family, is there?
Well, yeah, there is now.
Yeah.
With the in-laws, yeah, got to think about City.
Keep them happy, I suppose.
So there you go.
Can't upset the in-laws.
No, definitely not. I've got lovely in-laws, so
Thanks,
I'm
Aidan.
nice to them. Yeah, are you coming back later?
No, I'm back. I'm back next week, though.
Oh, right. Yeah.
OK.
I lose track of when you're in multiple
I'm off on safari, as you can see.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, you're dressed for it anyway.
Oh, dressed for it. Thanks, Aidan.
Thanks, guys.
Aidan. Lots more to come, including a look at this morning's papers, of course.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
course, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela.
Let's go through the papers for you. And joining us this morning is former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and her lovely husband, the political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson.
Aren't you glad we're sitting between them?
Oh, yes. It could get feisty because we're starting with the Sunday Telegraph and Liz Truss.
Oh, yes.
Don't tell me you agree on this one.
We probably do broadly, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
I
think we both think she was a useless prime minister, basically, don't we?
Yeah.
Short-lived.
Oh, well, moving on then.
But where we will disagree is I hate to say this, but I do agree with the low taxation route. However, I disagree with the way Liz Truss went about it.
Well, she caused meltdown, didn't she?
Complete and utter meltdown. And I think it's quite a bold statement to accuse her downfall of being on the lefty economic people in the world. And you just sort of think, a currency speculator, not really very left-wing.
No.
You know, hedge funds and bonds, not known for their left-wing bias. So I think that that's quite bold. It's 4,000 words. Which is quite a lot, and I think somebody worked out it was just over 100 words per day of her premiership.
Oh, yes.
So we're all getting value for money from Liz Truss's premiership right now.
Doesn't she have a fair point, though, Nigel? People want to see low taxes and a smaller state.
Yes, they do. And nothing wrong with low taxes. It's a question of timing. If you're facing a cost of living crisis, an NHS which is beginning to collapse, social care not sorted out, they should be the priorities before you start thinking about lowering taxes.
Don't we get those priorities funded by pushing on growth?
Well, that is the Liz Truss argument, but obviously growth comes down the way that if you start reducing taxes, you have less of a tax take coming in, which would pay for those things. I mean, I sat there in the House of Commons watching that budget, and as it progressed, I just thought, this is completely bonkers. I could not understand what he was doing. The mere idea of trying to do a budget without any figures going to it, which is what sent the markets into meltdown. Why on earth he tried to scrap the 45% top rate? Doesn't raise a great deal of money anyway. So why do that? There'd be no clamour for it. None of it really made sense. And then the markets reacted the way they did.
Because there was no money in the bank, basically.
Well, it wasn't funded. I mean, there was no way of actually saying, we can afford this. And as Claire just said, that the speculators are not about politics, they're about profits. What they wanted to do was make profit, and they could see they weren't going to do it.
But the markets have... I mean, not only have the markets stabilised now, the FTSE hit... I don't know, was it 10, 15-year high yesterday, 7,900 and something, or on Friday, I should say. All very, very positive news. So at what point does Rishi Sunak say, actually, we know inflation's coming down, we can actually start to ease some of the tax burden now?
I think you need to wait to see what happens. The Bank of England obviously raised the interest rate this past week, which I think will be the last one that we see, and inflation will go down. I think that's what everybody is predicting, that inflation has peaked, it is going to reduce. I think you need to be very, very careful that you don't trigger something too quickly. So I think the Prime Minister is probably quite right at the moment just to be a little bit cautious. We are only at the beginning of February. I think we need to wait at least another quarter before you start to look at it, which handily brings you into the realms of another general election period.
Convenient, that.
And you could look at perhaps reducing your tax rates at that point.
Just before the election.
Cynical person.
Cynical
Yes,
or
absolutely.
what?
I tell you what,
Yes.
Labour's going to have to offer to lower taxes, aren't they, if they want to win an election?
I don't think you need to at the moment because people do appreciate there are more important things to get sorted out first. So I don't think Labour can actually do that. If they're going to spend money on the NHS or wherever, lowering taxes has got to be down the line.
Yeah, we don't want them leaving another note saying there is no money.
I know, and that was a joke. That was he did get pilloried for that.
Hilarious.
But
Now, Nigel, we have to ask you about this extraordinary headline on the front page of The Sun.
yes, well, I mean, the burning question has been, who was it?
Older woman.
An older woman who rode Prince Harry like a stallion, according to his new book.
Too much information at this time of the morning.
And it turns out that she is a former groom at Highgrove called Sasha Walpole.
She's only 2 years older than him.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he was 16 at the time and she was 18, so I suppose when you're that young...
but that's the headline on the front of the Sun today.
No.
That's it. I took Harry's virginity. Front page of the Sun. Look at it.
Anyway, she tells her story. The one thing she's a bit upset about is that at no point did Harry come to her and say, hey, I'm going to include you in my book, is that OK? Because quite clearly...
She didn't name her.
She didn't ask for publicity, she
That's
says
the
on
point.
the front of the Sun. I don't want publicity.
She may have decided to cash in since on the basis that her name would come out eventually.
She's a married mother of two. What is she thinking coming out with this?
I think that probably the money is rather good.
Well, come on, we've got an editor sitting here of two tabloid newspapers. What sort of money would she have got for that?
I've no idea. I've no idea what the two paid, but putting it together, I would think that's a six-figure sum.
Really?
Six-figure sum? Dear me, she's a little bit disparaging about Harry. In the Sun on Sunday, if you read the details.
You're choosing your words very carefully, Stephen.
Yes.
But I do love the fact that the Sun on Sunday have also mocked up a little blue plaque.
Yes, they have.
To put in the fields where the deed took place behind the pub in Wiltshire.
It gets sillier and sillier.
It does. I mean, it is brilliant. It removes everything, all of the politics that we're having to deal with. I think this story is
exactly.
In the Sunday People, Claire, you're looking at a column written by some bloke called Nigel Nelson.
Yes.
I hope he's paying you.
Hopefully he'll just fill the dishwasher when we get home. That'll be lovely. But this is...
Yes. Forgot to do that.
This was a particular event. We attended the Grand Prix a few years ago, which was fantastic at Silverstone. But unfortunately, Nigel's ears really aren't the best.
Oh.
He goes and has them hoovered out by the NHS so that he can hear. But unfortunately, misheard the nice waiter coming around with some lobster. So would you like lobster? And what Nigel actually heard was, are you lost, sir?
Oh.
So quite indignantly...
That's understandable, Nigel.
Well, indeed, I thought so at the time, yes.
But then sort of proceeded to look at me and say, well, that was lobster. I was like, well, yes. That's what the man said. And then was sort of outraged that he'd missed it.
So the first outrage was that someone was asking me if I was lost. Well, good Lord, no, I know exactly where I am. And the second bit was that I seemed to have missed out on the lobster that was going around.
Oh. So you went straight off for a microsuction after that?
Indeed, yeah, just to get the ears cleared out, yes. Yeah.
It's just wax, then? Is that just...
It's a build-up, and so microsuction, nowadays they don't syringe anymore because doctors think it might cause infection. So it's microsuction, which feels like you're having your head vacuum cleaned. It's quite painless, it's very quick, so it works very well. But that now is the preferred procedure.
But you can hear us now, Nigel.
I can hear you now perfectly, thanks, Angela.
Would you like some lobster?
No, I tell you what...
I was wondering where breakfast had gone.
Can I say, I don't think lobster's very socialist, Nigel.
No, I was invited in by some Tory bigwigs to the VIP section, so that's how it happened. Sometimes Tories can be useful.
I would like to know what the two of you are going to be watching on telly tonight.
Oh... just that one show that everybody's there, Happy Valley.
Absolutely, Happy Valley. Yes, wouldn't
And is it
miss
all
it
over
tonight.
the papers today?
Yeah, wouldn't miss it tonight for anything. What is interesting is the Sunday Express have come out with 5 different endings they think are most likely, and each one of them will involve the death of the villain Royce in the piece. So it rather just depends how he dies now. So one suggestion is that young Ryan, Sarah Lancashire's grandson in the series, will shoot him. It may be that her sister Claire, who she's fallen out with in the series, will shoot him. I know you have to be a.
He's getting shot then, one way or another.
It looks like he gets shot, yeah, but according to this, he'll get shot one way or the other. Yeah.
Don't think so. What do you think?
Oh, I think he will. But I think the last one here, so this is the sort of the flaky husband or partner of
the sister.
Catherine Royce's sister. And it's him that does it, him that does the dirty deed. And when you sort of look at him, he's the most unlikely character. So I sort of favour that outcome.
Yeah.
But either way, it's had us all gripped. It's such a superb show.
You do realise we are talking about something that somebody in this room has never seen.
Never
you have
seen
to. You absolutely
Then get it on catch up because you
got-
really enjoy
I
it.
haven't got it. I've only got I've got Amazon Prime, I've got Netflix, and I've got the GB News app.
But he hasn't got the BBC. He's not
the
what.
BBC.
So he doesn't know what we're talking about.
You're missing out. It is the most fantastic show.
Yeah,
There are very, very few things on television that we watch. We tend to watch streaming services as well. But this is just so superb. And what's really good is the place where it's filmed, the area, Hebden Bridge, has now had a boom in tourism.
Well, Hebden Bridge is lovely.
Absolutely
I didn't know
is.
it was shot there.
Yeah,
Very nice.
and places like Halifax and Doncaster where
Can I
it's
just
also-
say, you're talking about people getting shot and dying, which is not very woke. Not very woke. The Mail would be very upset about this, or...
They would. And what this is it's a communications director in California, where else, who says there are certain words we can't use. And the idea is to get violence out of words. So, for instance, killing 2 birds with 1 stone is a no-no. That should be replaced with that'll feed 2 birds with 1 stone. But they do point out that some of the...
Your ears washed out. Stone.
Scone.
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
One of the things that it points out here is that some things that are meant to be banned in California aren't actually violent. So jump the gun should be banned. But of course, that's not about shooting anybody. That's about runners going off too early when the starting pistol goes off. But there's a whole load of them that you shouldn't use. Bite the bullet that she doesn't like. We should be saying, I will avoid that altogether instead.
What about Deadline? Because that's the one I find most extraordinary.
That's the other one. Deadline. Newspapers will never be the same again if we lose the word deadline.
No, but to change it, so, from deadline, which everybody understands, to what's the due date? Which most people will assume is a pregnancy-related term. And I think if you said, what's the due date, everybody would look at you in the most mystified manner. And sort of it doesn't really have the same effect. A deadline is an imperative thing that you have to get to, which is normally a lot quicker than you wish it to be. But due date is a sort of lengthier time.
What else have we got?
We have got Let's Not Beat a Dead Horse.
Right.
Let's focus on that.
But again, the saying is, it's like flogging a dead horse.
Yeah, and I don't see what the issue is. It doesn't mean it's going to encourage anybody to go out there and find a dead horse and then flog it. I just don't understand why people get so upset. You're not allowed to say that's not a bad idea.
Oh, right.
Because that would be construed as negative. You have to say that's a good idea.
Right.
Oh, well, there you go. It's very, very interesting. The deadline upsets us very much indeed in this business. We won't ask you what you call an exclamation mark, Nigel, in the newspaper business.
Will you not?
That's another story. Thank you. We'll see you both a little bit later on. Now, just in case you didn't know, the half-term holidays are fast approaching, and with summer a few months away, is the airline industry ready to cope without causing misery like last year?
EU border checks, strikes and staff shortages are just a few of the challenges facing airlines this year.
Yeah, so we sent Will Hollis to a jobs fair at East Midlands Airport, where businesses are hoping to plug the gaps in their workforce ahead of a busy season.
Celebrating 37 years of marriage, Chris and Dave are off to Malaga.
It's just great to be able to get away again. You know, being stuck at home, not being able to travel all that time. It's just, now we just jump on board as much as we can.
The summer season is still beyond the horizon, but these winter months are crucial to replenishing a workforce decimated by the pandemic.
As a baggage handler, predominantly you will be unloading and unloading of the bags, OK?
Josh, who's leaving college, is hoping to find a job here at East Midlands Airport.
I heard East Midlands Airport had a lot of jobs available, and I was like, I need a job. And then I came here and there's a lot of jobs available. And, you know, I've heard a lot of good stuff about what's there, and hopefully, yeah, get one.
The industry's biggest names are recruiting new talent, including Swissport.
Last year we recruited a team coming back from the pandemic, which was a challenging time. It was busy last year. We got through and we are now moving forward for this year.
Travel chaos caused misery in many British airports last year. Huge queues and thousands of cancellations. Short staffing was the main issue.
The number of jobs on offer here could be seen as both encouraging or alarming. Encouraging because it shows that the industry is ready to bounce back after the toughest time in its history, but alarming because if those vacancies aren't filled soon, we could see a repeat of the same travel chaos that plagued last summer.
This airport alone has more than 100 vacancies it wants to fill, including for security where Eliza manages training.
We're looking at a real bright summer. The forecast for the passengers is, extended from last year. We've got no gaps currently. We're forecast to be on target for our recruitment. And looking at the people that we've got here today, any issues, we will have filled that by the summer season.
The industry as a whole is struggling to keep staff. A survey by the SAP found a third of the workforce plan to quit this year because of stress. Some travel bosses think issues with retaining and recruiting staff could last until Christmas. With passenger numbers expected to reach just below 2019 levels, the government hopes the industry can limit disruption. Aside from staffing, EU border checks and strikes at home and abroad won't make that easy. Will Hollis, GB News in the East Midlands.
I don't know about the government wanting to make it so difficult. I think the travelling public don't want to, do they?
No.
No, the travelling public just want to get on the plane and go on holiday, don't they?
Exactly so.
Now, World Cancer Day was marked yesterday amidst growing fears that the UK is facing a ticking cancer time bomb.
Yeah, now studies are warning that the illness is increasingly affecting under 50s. Cancer Research UK predicts new cases to rise by a third by 2040, though an expert did tell us, didn't they, last weekend, that particular increase is down to an ageing population.
Exactly. So let's cross over now to Dr. Dawn Harper. Thank you for joining us, Dawn, and bearing that in mind, what we were listening to last week about the ageing population being more likely to have cancer. What is it about the 30s and 40s, I think, which is what this latest review says, are likely to have cancer? What is going on in that age group?
So, of course, cancer is an umbrella term, isn't it? And we can get cancer in all sorts of different parts of the body. And there are some cancers that are more common in younger people. It's one of the reasons why we're very keen, even on younger people, checking themselves very regularly. So testicular cancer, for example, is more common in younger men. But there is a good news story regarding cancer around World Cancer Day as well, and that is that NHS England have launched a cancer busting tour. They've identified 5 areas of Britain, 5 towns and cities in England that have the lowest early cancer detection rates. And so they're taking an NHS logoed bus this week is going to Blackburn, Sunderland, Barnsley, Leicester and London. And it's really all about raising awareness of the signs and symptoms of cancer and opening up those conversations and encouraging people to come to us sooner. Because whilst we're seeing cancer rise, if we can also also detect and diagnose cancer early, we can make a massive impact into survival rates. And that's what really matters. We want people to survive this disease. So one of the, I think, really encouraging statistics that's blazoned across the side of this bus is that if you filled that double-decker bus with 78 cancer patients, but all of those patients were diagnosed at the early stage, so very early on, and they presented early and the diagnosis was made early, then 65 of those 78 patients would survive their cancer. They would be cured.
Great statistic.
So I think whilst we are seeing numbers, it is a great statistic, isn't it? So I think whilst we're seeing those numbers go up, actually the important thing is about treating and curing cancer. And we really do think that we can make a huge impact if we get people to come forward. So I'm really pleased actually that you've highlighted the younger generation as well, because I think sometimes when we're younger, perhaps we don't really think that we are at risk. So it's all about checking yourself. And it's about looking out for things like blood in your pee or your poo, any new lump that you notice, maybe when you're in the shower or getting dressed in the morning, any new lump, feeling just inexplicably tired and you don't really know why, or pain that you don't know why it's there, losing weight when you're not intending to, and even some more common symptoms, so things like diarrhea or a cough, we are all going to get at some stage. But if that is persisting and getting worse after 3 weeks, then your GP wants to see you. I know it can be tricky.
We only have 30 seconds left. I mean, tell us why. Yes, checking it all very important. Early diagnosis, very important. But what about why these figures are increasing in a younger population? Isn't prevention going to be better?
Prevention is always better than cure, and we need to understand why, and that will be another arm and another project. So I think we need to work together with the two of them. It's about understanding why, behaving in a more healthy way, adapting our lifestyles so that we are less at risk. But it's also about, if we are then developing the disease, making sure that we present early.
Well, it's all very, very good advice, particularly about what to look for in case you may have to have a diagnosis.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Harper, thanks very much indeed. We've got much more to come for you. Did you know it's National Yorkshire Pudding Day?
No, I didn't.
No? Well, we should have some later on.
Right.
We'll tell you more after the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's a sunny Sunday ahead and dry for most of us, albeit a little bit chillier, a little bit less mild than it has been through some recent days. The reason for the calm weather is this whacking great big area of high pressure that is going to be very high indeed. Could see pressure of around 1048, 1049. So although that's not quite record breaking for February, it is very high nonetheless. As a result, very calm conditions across the bulk of the UK. Yesterday's fronts now cleared away towards the south, and then there's plenty of winter sunshine across much of the UK. Now the sunshine is going to be a little bit hazy at times. That's because there will be some high-level cloud pushing through, but we are going to have mostly light winds. Despite the fact that there will be plenty of sunshine and light winds, temperatures on paper are actually down a couple of degrees compared to yesterday, but in the winter sunshine it should still feel relatively pleasant. As we go through the end of the day, there'll be little change across much of England and Wales, holding on to the clear skies here. Further north, though, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture, and the cloud will be thick enough for a few spots of rain, and we'll see some blustery winds developing too. Across England and Wales, under the clear skies and with light winds, temperatures are going to take quite a drop, so a fairly widespread frost. Could see even towns and cities falling below freezing, and some freezing fog patches to watch out for first thing Monday morning here as well. As we go through Monday itself, then a bright start for much of England and Wales, but you can see that cloud is gradually going to push its way in from the northwest, so many places turning somewhat cloudier. Staying quite cloudy for Scotland and Northern Ireland, still gusty, blustery winds at times and a few spots of rain. Perhaps some brightness towards the north of Scotland, and here that's actually where the highest temperatures are likely to be on Monday, could just about get into double figures. Elsewhere, temperatures similar to today, but with the cloud and the slightly blustery winds, perhaps feeling a touch less warm. As we go through the rest of the week, there'll be some further changeable weather across northern parts, staying drier, brighter and sunnier further south, but quite chilly at times with some overnight frosts and some further fog to watch out for.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
I wasn't given a realistic chance. That's how Liz Truss assessed her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
A very good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock on Sunday the 5th of February and this is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Angela. And here are your top stories this morning.
Well, the former Prime Minister Liz Truss claims she lacked support when she was in the job and says her radical tax cuts weren't given a chance to succeed.
Police searching for missing Nicola Bulley say they found a key witness as her family dismissed the police's claims that she fell into the River Wire whilst walking her dog.
Tensions mount between America and China after the suspected spy balloon is shot down. President Biden calls it a national security threat. China says it's an overreaction to a simple weather balloon.
Well, as ever, you can join in any of our discussions and indeed comment on any of the stories that we bring you by just emailing us to gbviews@gbnews.uk. And you've been doing that already this morning with so many of the stories that we've covered. I wasn't given a realistic chance. Well, that's how Liz Truss has assessed her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
Yeah, she's written an article for the Sunday Telegraph, and the former Prime Minister discusses, at least, a potential return to frontline politics, but opens up about her radical tax-cutting budget, which, of course, contributed to her downfall.
So let's cross over now to our reporter, Catherine Forster, to discuss Liz Truss's claims. And you've obviously read the article, Catherine. What do you make of what she has to say? Is she making a bid for frontline power or just trying to reassess her political credibility?
I don't think even Liz Truss, who is fairly untroubled by self-doubt, I think we can safely say, is really expecting to make a return to frontline politics anytime soon. Although I did hear yesterday that she has half a hope, apparently, of making a return if and when the Conservatives are in opposition, that she harbours hopes that she could possibly lead them in opposition. I doubt that that would be a view shared by many in the Conservative Party. I think this is an attempt for her to set out her stall, to put her side of the story forward. She has, of course, been very, very quiet indeed, unlike Boris Johnson over the last 100 days or so since she was forced to stand down. And now she is back with a bang today with this 4,000-word piece, a very, very long piece in the Sunday Telegraph. And there will be a television interview tomorrow. We don't know who that will be with yet. But basically, she is saying that she was right. In essence, it wasn't that Trussonomics was wrong. It wasn't that her plans for driving growth, cutting taxes, having a smaller state, supply side reforms were wrong in themselves. It was that she was not given the chance to implement Trussonomics, because basically what happened is, she said, the economic establishment, the left-leaning establishment, as she describes it, she's talking about the Office for Budget Responsibility, the Bank of England, many within her own party, the media, the international community, none of which were really on board with what she and Kwasi Kwarteng attempted to do very suddenly with the mini budget. And that she wasn't given the chance, so she hasn't been able to prove that this message was right. And although she's accepted some responsibility, she's also saying, well, the Treasury didn't warn me about how vulnerable pension funds were. And yes, I might have done things differently, but even if I had been able to, I don't think it would have made any difference, because the economic orthodoxy don't really understand where we were coming from, and she was trying to swim against the tide. So it's certainly a very interesting interpretation of events, and anybody that was hoping or expecting an apology will be quite disappointed.
What strikes me, Catherine, is that she seems to be sort of claiming these ideas back and saying, well, it could have worked, you know, there's a possibility it could have worked, I still believe in it all. However, at the time, of course, when it all went wrong, she blamed Kwasi Kwarteng and he had to go.
Well, she did, and she said that she'd found that very difficult, getting rid of him, and she did that in a desperate attempt to save herself. But of course, she was gone. She had to resign less than a week later. And everybody knew that this was not just the Chancellor's budget. This was a project. They were ideological bedfellows, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. This is something that they believed in very deeply, that they had thought about and planned for many years, that they were trying to set in motion. So it wasn't his budget, it was very much their budget. And of course, she, in sacking Tom Scholar, the permanent secretary to the Treasury, when she came in, then there was the Queen's death. At one point, Kwasi Kwarteng laid some responsibility there, that they had then been distracted. But basically, they came up with this largely, the two of them, they kept a lot of this to themselves. A lot of the cabinet didn't really know what was going on until it was announced. And in all the messaging that they sent, that they were going to go against the orthodoxy, They didn't need a forecast from the Office for Budget Responsibility. They were finding fault with the Bank of England, the way things had been done in the past. A lot of blame too for the way things have been done during the Conservative rule since 2010. In setting themselves up as disruptors, of course, the establishment didn't like that, did they? They came in being very confrontational, and then they found that this was a disaster with the markets. The pound plunged, the Bank of England had to intervene to prop up the bond markets, and it all went horribly, horribly wrong.
It just did. I mean, the markets went into total meltdown, didn't they? I mentioned this quote earlier. It was in the Times, which said that Liz was mad, but she was right. Sunak is wrong, but at least he's competent. Do you think that actually sums up the situation? Because clearly from the article, which we've been reading this morning in the Telegraph, Liz Truss really took no notice whatsoever of that great list that you gave us previously of all the people who said this was wrong, not just the Bank of England, but all of the markets and everybody else. She's not actually prepared to accept that they're right and she might be wrong.
No, she's really absolutely not. And the thing is that the Conservatives, by and large, do want lower taxes. They do want a smaller role for the state. But we are in incredible times at the moment, aren't we? We had the financial crisis, then we had COVID. They had to spend vast amounts of money keeping the economy afloat, keeping households afloat. Then we've got war in Europe, the cost of the energy support scheme. So the government has been forced into large amounts of spending. Now, Liz Truss was saying, OK, well, we can borrow much more for tax cuts. We'll worry about how we're going to pay for that sometime down the line because we need to get growth up. But Rishi Sunak, of course, was saying, no, this is fairy tale economics. We can't do this because this is a bill which will have to be paid. And ultimately, the markets were spooked by the level of spending, and also Kwasi Kwarteng after the mini budget going on TV and saying this is just the beginning, and we've got all these plans for what we're going to do, but with no seeming concern for how or when it was going to be paid for. So certainly Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt very much do say they want to lower the tax burden. They are fiscal conservatives, they say, while the tax is currently at a 70-year high. But their argument is we've had to have this level of spending. We have to try to get the debt down, get the inflation down, and then we will want to cut taxes, but now is not the time.
It's going to be interesting to see what the good people of Harlow in Essex make of all of this. You're there for the People's Panel, aren't you, today?
Yes, if you're wondering why we're stood in a very closed street, because it's very early. We're here in Harlow for Camilla Tominey's show. We'll be doing the People's Panel after 9:30 this morning, talking to people about Brexit, because of course it's 3 years on since we left the European Union. 68% of people here in Harlow voted to leave. So we're going to be seeing what they make of how things have gone.
It's going to be a lively debate, I think. Catherine, thanks so much for joining us.
It's 8 minutes... No, it's not. It's 9 minutes past 8. Get it the right way around. Let's bring you up to date with some of the headlines. And police are appealing to a missing aristocrat who's gone missing with her newborn baby and partner. They say it's thought they've been camping in Sussex. They want them to get in touch. Constance Martin and her family went missing in January. A £10,000 reward has been offered in the search for them.
The Nurses' Union has called on the Prime Minister to make a new pay offer in order to avoid upcoming planned strikes. The head of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen, says a meaningful offer could avert the action. The NHS is facing what many are calling the biggest strike day that the service has ever seen, as tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance staff in England are set to walk out tomorrow and Tuesday.
A key witness in the search for missing Nicola Bulley has come forward. Officers appealed for a woman seen on CCTV wearing a yellow coat and pushing a pram in the area where Miss Bulley disappeared in Lancashire last Friday. There has, since that appeal been made, been speculation and some abuse on social media towards the witness, police calling that totally unacceptable.
Residents who were evacuated following a security scare in a town in Derbyshire are now able to return to their homes. A number of people had to leave their houses in Belper, and nearby roads were closed after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosive offences. Derbyshire police said they found a number of suspicious items, but it is not being treated as a terrorist incident.
Now, as we were just saying, police are urgently trying to find out what has happened to Nicola Bulley in what is now a crucial 10-minute window after she was last spotted in St Michael's. Her sister last night has said there's no evidence whatsoever, as the police are claiming, that she'd fallen into the nearby River Wyre.
Well, yesterday, a police helicopter was seen continuing the search for Nicola over the village of St Michael's on Wyre, where she lives with her partner and 2 children.
Well, let's get the latest from our national reporter, Theo Chikomba, who's at the scene. Hi, Theo.
10 days on since the disappearance of mother of 2, Nicola Bulley, and the community here has been shocked about what's happened. As you walk around the village, there are pictures and signs of her at almost every corner, on bus stops, at the pubs, in front of people's houses, on lampposts and more, as the search continues. The police in the last few days, indeed just over a week actually, have been working tirelessly every single day, searching up and down the riverbank, going from house to house, looking at CCTV footage, dash cam footage and more. And during the week they have spoken to a number of witnesses, especially yesterday a key witness which they have described, a woman wearing a yellow jacket who has now been found, and they are working with her to establish what she saw on that Friday morning between around 8:20 and 8:40 a.m. Now, over the last few days there have been many people coming from different parts of the country just to come and see what's happening and offer their support as well, rallying around the community. I spoke to a friend yesterday who said she's taken back by some of the support she has seen from people, but they won't be giving up until Nicola is found. We've heard from her partner Paul Anso as well, saying they're never going to give up, and they also have some daughters as well who'll be looking out for this news. The police have reiterated, saying please people refrain from speculation, as this may cause distress to the family. But the search here continues. You probably see police in and around the village as they search here, and of course elsewhere in surrounding areas as part of their investigations.
OK, Theo, thank you.
Well, earlier we spoke to forensic search and rescue specialist Peter Faulding.
This is totally unusual. Good morning, Steve and Angela. I've worked on hundreds of these cases. We deal with them for the police across the whole of the South East. We're the official dive team for the police across the South East. The amount of searching that's gone on in this river, I would have thought she would have been found by now. Look, normally when a person drowns, if they are left a number of days, we've dealt with, say, many of these incidents, and they don't move very far. This is not a fast tidal river, so I would have expected her to be found by the police divers by now. Apparently sonar's been used, but that's only as good as the equipment or the operator using them. We could have scanned this river with our equipment within a day and seen if there was a body there. It's as clear as that. And you know, none of this rings right to me. My belief is she's not in the river at all.
We were talking to Peter in the earlier hour of the programme, weren't we, just after 7 o'clock. So if you weren't able to see the full interview, it's interesting that he went on to say that his company has the most up-to-date equipment in the world for searching in a river, and he would be prepared without any cost. He would do it for free to take that equipment, look in the river and clear up within a day, 2 days at the most, whether or not Nicola actually is in the water.
He can do that, and he won't do it unless the police ask him,
no.
Because you've got to be very careful on stepping on police toes. But if anyone from the Lancashire Force is watching, get in touch with Peter. So, as Angela said, he will do it for free, and at least sort out one line of inquiry.
Yes, and bring the family some closure one way or the other.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to half-term holidays, should we? They're fast approaching, and with summer just a few months away. Oh, sooner it's warmer, the better. The airline industry, well, are they really ready to cope without causing the misery we've seen over recent years?
Well, we hope so, but EU border checks, strikes and staff shortages are just a few of the challenges that are facing airlines this year.
Yeah, well, let's talk to Will Hollis, our East Midlands reporter, who joins us now at East Midlands Airport, I think, Will, where they're trying to sort out jobs, aren't they? See what's available and get ready for a busy summer.
Good morning. Yes, you can see people filing past me because they're on the way to the departure lounge. There's around 11 flights between now and the end of the day here at East Midlands Airport, including those popular tourist destinations, Alicante as well as Tenerife, and a couple of Eastern European destinations too. So it might be winter, but people are certainly using this airport. Of course, it isn't summer yet. We've still got a little way to go before we do see those passenger levels get back to where they were. The government is saying that they think there's going to be passenger levels back to 2019 summer levels, so pre-pandemic. So there's a lot of expectation on this summer, but it doesn't take much to resonate those images of travel chaos that we saw, particularly at those bigger airports, at Heathrow, at Gatwick, at Stansted, at Birmingham and Manchester, where people were waiting in queues for long times. Sometimes they'd be sat on an aeroplane and then they'd be told that their flight has been cancelled. I'm told by East Midlands Airport that because it's a smaller regional airport, they didn't have as many problems like that, but they still want to make sure that they've got the staff that they need so that they can give that service that the air industry really wants to get back to. Now, I was at a jobs fair yesterday where they had 100 jobs or so for people working in security as well as baggage handlers. Lots of young people looking to get into the airline industry, but lots of people considering changing their jobs as well. Now, there are a few main things that the air industry needs to sort out if we are going to get away from those problems that we saw last year. Of course, the first one is recruitment and retention. A survey of different workforce people inside of the industry by the SAP found that 33% of people were considering changing their career from the airline industry because of stress and workload. Of course, you mentioned at the start there that strikes, particularly border force strikes, are causing problems at some airports, at some entries into the UK. There's 4 days of strikes coming up in the half-term holidays for the PCS union, around 1,000 members. And then the final one is, of course, entry into EU countries, because right now, because we're not a part of the European Union anymore, there are a few more checks that need to be done if we are going to get through those checks. Now, there's something called the entry-exit system. It's a part of a post-Brexit deal to make it a little bit quicker to get into EU countries. That's been delayed a number of times, and that's expected to come in this year in 2023. So there are certainly some big challenges for the airline industry to overcome. Some people in the industry estimate that these big problems won't be solved until the middle of summer 2023. Some people say it could go on for the rest of the year. But right now, we're in those colder months. We can only dream of summer holidays, but we're hoping ultimately that those dreams don't turn into summer nightmares like we saw last year.
Oh, let's hope not.
No.
Will, thank you very much indeed. Do you know, I love East Midlands Airport.
Yes, you do, don't you?
It's small.
What's special about it?
It's so small that you can get there, you can park up, walk to the terminal in 2 minutes, and then you just get on the plane.
Yeah.
Off you go.
It's a bit far to go, though, unless you live in the area.
Yeah, it's only about 40 minutes from me.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really handy.
But some of the points that Will was making there are totally relevant, and I know that an awful lot of people are going to be worried about what it is going to mean if they go on holiday this year. Ken says, I travelled to Jersey last year and the chaos in Heathrow was horrendous. Jersey Airport is also managed by Swissport, but it's in a much better state. Maybe we need to rethink the idea of building bigger and bigger airports. He's got a point then, haven't he? Because East Midlands is a smaller airport.
The small regional airports are
which
fantastic.
is why it works, yeah.
But of course, do they have enough business to sustain them? Blackpool Airport was amazing. That's gone now.
Exeter, Newquay in the West Country.
This is a problem.
Yeah, it is. Coming up, we're going to be meeting a man who is not worried about flying at the moment because he's cycling. Believe it or not, from Bolton to Melbourne in Australia. It's coming up. It's 10,000, more than nearly 15,000 miles away.
Crazy. I'll tell you more in a moment.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one.
Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like
Absolutely.
on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:24. Good morning to you watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen, Angela and a very upset Mary.
Yes.
Angela.
Mary is very upset. She says, I'm so mad with you. Why are you discussing Happy Valley? I had to change channels so that I didn't hear anything. I just want to sit down and watch it tonight without knowing anything beforehand. Mary, we didn't tell you what happens because we don't know.
Just speculation.
Yeah, everybody's speculating at the moment. We've all got theories, haven't we?
Well, I haven't because I've never seen it.
Never watches it, no. But
I've
anyway,
never seen it.
no.
I'm sure it's excellent.
Honestly, Mary, stay with us because we are going to talk about it as a brilliant piece of television drama a bit later on. But we can't tell you what the ending is because we do not know, and that's exactly how it should be. Yes.
Now, are you feeling very fit this morning? If you are, well, you might be put to shame because cycling to work may be pretty common. But how about cycling from good old Bolton to Australia?
Because it's a Bolton businessman who decided to do exactly that in the bid to raise money for unpaid junior carers and for deprived children. He's joining us now, and the rider is Andrew Crompton. A very good morning to you, Andrew. You're in Australia already after what must be, over 10,000 miles that you've cycled already?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Angela. Morning, Stephen. Yeah, it's been quite a long way.
Now, look, it's a long way, but
legs are a bit tired.
You're going to tell us about the journey, but start, please, by telling us why you are doing this, because you're doing it for the Carers Trust and for a Boys and Girls Club in Bolton, because you've got a specific interest, haven't you, in young carers.
Yeah, so when I was working, I semi-retired just over 12 months ago, and in anticipation of that, I really wanted to set myself a big challenge, and we've always supported Carers Trust and Bolton Lads and Girls Club, but particularly young carers, and both of these great causes run fantastic programmes for young carers. So I'm really riding for that, to really raise awareness and as much money as possible to and probably get fit and lose a little bit of weight along the way.
You said you wanted a big challenge. I mean, Andrew, you could have cycled to London. You could have cycled to Paris, to Melbourne. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it really is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's. I must admit, when I came up with the idea, I probably didn't realise just what big a challenge it was going to be. So it certainly is a long way, but we've brought on the back of it now. We've got about 3,300 kilometres to go. So we're certainly on the home leg.
Yeah, but you've had quite a few adventures on the way, haven't you? I mean, let's talk about this in geographical terms. You didn't just cycle through Europe. You've gone through the Middle East, you've gone through Asia, and some pretty difficult terrains. We've got some great film of you, I think, in going through the desert. Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so... I think probably the toughest mentally and physically was definitely through the Middle East, through Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and to the UAE. I mean, this was just terrain that was just perfectly flat into the distance. You just saw the heat haze. It was 38 degrees and just sand at each side. So it really was, 5 or 6 hours a day, just cycling along those sort of like roads. That was mentally very challenging as well. But I think also physically, some of the mountains in eastern Turkey and some of the hills in India have also been very physically challenging as well. So particularly say for an old boy like me.
Well, old boy, give over. But it must have been quite an adventure in seeing, I mean, over a period of 6-7 months, seeing all these tremendously different cultures and different people that you must have met along the way.
Yeah, that's been the most amazing part of the journey, and it's one that I'll really miss, because we've just seen, so many, been sampled so many different cultures, so many different foods, been welcomed by so many people across the world, and they really have. It really sort of restored my faith in humankind, really, because we've been treated so well, invited into places for breakfast, people's houses, and for dinner, and it's just been a really amazing journey.
And how much did you set out to raise, and how much have you already managed? I mean, you're going to finish, aren't you, on the 25th of March, is it, in the Melbourne Cricket Ground? And you've got the whole now of the northern and eastern coast of Australia still to ride, so presumably more money still coming in. But how much do you think you will eventually get out of all of this?
Well, at the moment, with the pledges that we've got and with what we've on Just Giving, we're around the £156,000 mark, which we're absolutely delighted with. It's been absolutely so generous to so many people. I think if we could really be cheeky and push that to for 250,000 by the time we get down to Melbourne, I think we'd all be delighted. I mean, it makes so much difference to so many lives of these young carers.
Oh, well, it will indeed. I tell you what, you've been in the sunshine for a very long time now. It's going to be a bit tough going back to Bolton, isn't it? Because, I mean, as much as I love Bolton, it's not the sunniest place in the world.
Do you know, Stephen, I'm looking forward to getting back, because, just as you say, we had a heat wave down through Europe. We've been through the Middle East. We've got a heat wave in Queensland here. It's 34 and very high humidity. So I can't say a little bit of frost would do me a world of good.
Can I just ask you a quick question? You've depended on an awful lot of people, as you say, being really kind and supportive, and I know you've got a team going with you. But you landed in Australia, I think, in Cairns just a week ago. How have the Aussies reacted to a crazy Brit cycling all that way?
Yeah, they do struggle to when you speak to them and you talk to them where you actually come from. They don't kind of comprehend it. They kind of just ignore it, and it's only when you say no, we really have done. I'm very, very fortunate. I've got a support vehicle with me as well, driven by my friend John Mills. So it's me and John together. So I'm not completely on my own, but yeah, they do try, and you can see the confusion when we talk to them about it.
I'm not surprised, Andrew. It's epic, however you look at it. Yeah. It's an epic journey. And as we say, it's going to be probably something nearly 15,000 miles that you will have cycled. So well done, you. And let's hope you make that target.
Be a decent cup of tea waiting for you back in Bolt.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Thank you very much from me on.
Bye now, keep pedalling.
What a lovely man as
He's
well.
smashing. I asked him, because I've interviewed him before, and I asked him at the time, I said, how are your knees and legs holding out? And he said, oh, it's not my knees and my legs I'm worried about. And she said, it's my rear end, because he spends a lot of time sitting on, but he's got a very comfortable saddle on that bicycle, apparently.
I usually think so. I'll be a little bit saddle sore.
I bet.
Never go on a bike ever again. Anyway, much more to come. We're going to bring you up to date with all the stories in the papers in just a few minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela.
Time now for the papers today, and joining us today, the married duo of former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. Morning to you both. Let's kick straight off with someone who's always controversial, Sadiq Khan in the Sunday Telegraph.
Yes, I mean, this is just the gift that keeps on giving. Sadiq Khan and his expanded ULEZ zone, which is
ultra-low emission
zone for vehicles, which is encroaching into the home counties. The piece here in the Telegraph, I love it because it refers to Surrey County Council and indeed my own county of Kent as rebel counties.
Oh.
They are fighting back against the London Mayor's expansion plans.
Yes.
And quite rightly so.
Can he expand into the home counties?
Well,
He's made of London, isn't he?
And I think this is largely the problem, is that he wants to expand it out into outer London boroughs, which most of them have that border with Kent, or Surrey, places like that, and into Essex. So you get that real difficulty of people that live just beyond the boundary but use a local set of shops or a hospital or a school will have to go through the ULEZ zone and pay extra money for it.
We should explain what the ULEZ zone is. It's all to do with emissions, isn't it?
It is all to do with emissions. So it's an ultra-low emissions zone to reduce the amount of pollution in the air in London. Why we need to expand this out when the pollution in the outer reaches isn't that bad.
It's actually less than central London.
It is much less than central London. And I think people especially in places like Kent, where I live, and my local county councillor, David Brazier, who is the cabinet member for highways, is quoted in this article, suggesting that councils are now looking at whether to ban the Mayor of London from having signage on the boundary that would suggest people travelling from, example, Kent into the zone, those signs would be banned. Because if there is no sign, you cannot be reasonably expected to pay for something that you didn't know was there. So they are testing the boundaries of the law to see if that is possible. And there are a lot of councils, Bromley, Bexley, Harrow, Hillingdon, are all looking at different types of action that they can take against the London Mayor for what they see as an encroachment onto their territory.
And we should say it's £15 a day
£15
if you go into that area, and it will hit the poorer people of the community because they are the ones who will not be able to go out and buy modern cars with less carbon monoxide. They are the ones who are going to be paying through the nose for this.
That's right, and there will be a scrappage scheme that is coming into London, which gives those on low incomes money off against a new vehicle, but that doesn't extend out into the outer boroughs.
I mean, Surrey Council seems to have come up with an idea that seems reasonable. Obviously, it depends who has to pay this, but if you're an NHS worker and you have to go to work every day and you're going to be hit with this kind of cost, that's phenomenal.
It's £15 a day.
Yeah, so I mean, what Surrey is suggesting is there are free corridors for NHS workers to get to hospitals.
That may not suit them on their route to work.
Well, I mean, I suppose it depends where the corridors go and where they are. But the idea that they would get to work free is not a bad idea.
Well, they're just going to get jammed up. Don't you think they should?
Everybody will.
Don't you think Sadiq Khan should just keep his nose out of counties that he doesn't run?
Well, there was always that.
Oh, well, he'll have a fight on his hands anyway, and I think the hope is that they will be able to stop him at his own boundary, which is bad enough as it is. Yes. Right, Nigel, Sunak's threat to pull the UK out of the ECHR. Tell us what that is and why he wants out.
The ECHR is the European Convention on Human Rights,
yes.
And so it is the European Human Rights Court, which people get quite aerated about. What Rishi Sunak wants to do is bring in a whole load of different laws to try and curb immigration, which one understands. It's one of the big issues that people care about at the moment. It looks like that cross-channel migration will go up by another 20,000 this coming year. The trouble is that whatever he comes up with, as the Sunday Times put it, will stretch the boundaries of international law. So the answer then is, let's pull out of the convention. I think that, I hope he doesn't. I think it would be a bad thing to go and do that.
Well, can't we have our own legislation on human rights?
Sorry?
Can't we just have our own legislation on human rights?
Well, you can, but the whole point about especially when it comes to dealing with asylum seekers, is international law, because obviously it's people coming from other countries. And the danger about pulling out of international treaties is we become a pariah. It may well affect our trade, and also it's thinking about what the European Court, the good things it's done. And an example would be that up until 2000, that men and women in the armed forces who were gay were jailed or thrown out of the armed forces. As a result, they've suffered poverty, humiliation, shame ever since. Now, it was the European Court that put an end to that.
Yeah, but just because they've done some good things doesn't need to say in there. Well, what do you think, Claire?
I mean, this is a really tricky one because you are looking at something which is stretching the boundaries of law. Now, I can see the attraction of having the UK courts putting the law through and us abiding by that, and that will be thoroughly tested. And you can see that if you have the judiciary agreeing that the law of the country is safe and it is sound, why then would you allow Strasbourg to come over and say, well, we think you're doing it incorrectly? So it's one of these issues that is worth investigating, but I think there have to be some really strong caveats that you cannot go against international law. As Nigel just said, we don't want to be in the same category as somewhere like Russia, as a pariah state. None of us want to see that, but I think we need to understand fully the impact it would have. This isn't going to come in for some time. As Tim Shipman says here in this piece, that it looks like it will form the next Conservative manifesto for the election. So it isn't going to come in for some time. It is very attractive to a certain portion of the Conservative Party and will also put enormous pressure on Labour to come up with alternative plans for immigration, which they have been decidedly tricky on. They haven't got a clear plan. So, therefore, we're pushing them into a corner. So, from that point, I think it's a great idea.
Sniggers from this.
Actually, the trouble is Claire's right. I mean, Labour really don't have a plan on immigration. That they talk about beefing up the National Crime Agency, but don't get much further than that. Until we get to a point where people don't have to claim asylum within this country, the problem continues. It's got to be an international agreement.
Oh, you need to get him properly trained so he just says yes.
I'm trying.
Now, do you two, when you get home on a Sunday morning, like a nice big fry-up, Claire?
Oh, do you know, there's always a place for a fry-up. And our local Greasy Spoon Cafe, Dolly's Diner in Longfield, heartily recommended. A little shout-out to them.
Oh, they'll love you.
They will, and they are fantastic, but it's a real
extra
treat.
egg for that.
Absolutely. It's a real treat to have one. It's not something that I have frequently. But we have here the chairman of the English Breakfast Society.
The what?
English Breakfast Society, such an august institution, has stated that Greasy Spoon cafes have killed off the English breakfast by making it cheap.
What?
He is suggesting that we need to spend £50 or upwards.
That would kill it off.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That would kill it.
Yeah, well, it's mad. And the whole point about going to a Greasy Spoon is that, you know, for 10 to 15 quid, you get a really good fry-up.
And that much.
The idea of spending £50, you just wouldn't do it.
5-6 quid, isn't it?
5-6 quid. Yes.
And a proper mug of tea.
Yes.
Yeah, stand your spoon up in it. And white toast. Lots of butter.
Yeah.
But that's the point. If something like that is a treat, you want that kind of breakfast.
But also, it's when it's made in like, lashings of fat and all the rest of it, and you're paying a £5 for it, it just tastes better.
It does, it does. And it's a bit of an institution.
Yeah.
You go in there, you see lots of different people. Everybody is, in our cafe, is very friendly. Everybody gets on. People pass salt or, ketchup down for you. And it's just a lovely atmosphere, and it's a real sort of heart of the community. And I think if you start to make this gentrified, you lose that. It's not the point of it.
Who's going to spend 50 quid on a breakfast?
Nobody.
Well, not us, anyway.
Anyway.
Dolly's Diner, is it?
Dolly's Diner.
Right, Dolly, we'll be there.
We'll be there. Nigel, in The Observer, you're looking at aristocrats apologising for owning slaves.
That's right. This is the Trevelyan family, and they owned 1,000 slaves on the Caribbean island of Grenada. They were compensated by nearly £27,000 when slavery ended in 1834, which was a huge amount of money in those days. What they want to do is go back to Grenada, apologise for what they did there when they owned 6 plantations, and give £100,000 to the islanders.
Each?
Not each. I mean, a total of £100,000.
Right.
So, I mean, on one hand, what they do with their own money is up to them.
Yeah.
I do worry a bit about us apologising or making reparations for things outside living memory. There has to be a kind of cut-off point where we say, look, we did bad things in the past in history, but if there are if it's not in living memory, there are no relatives now who were affected, I'm not sure we can keep going back and back in history to say, oh, we shouldn't have burnt those people at the stake or something like that.
And at what point do we charge the Italians for when, as the Romans, they came and invaded Britain?
Exactly, yes. Or even the French for the Battle of Hastings. I mean, it can go on, really.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Claire, you don't strike me as someone who particularly wants a load of liposuction, but you never know.
It's the goodie bag.
Not on my watch, anyway.
Oh, well, we'll see. I always find it fascinating that something like the Grammys, so this is for Hollywood stars, apparently there was an inclusion of a £15,000 voucher towards liposuction. When you look at the kind of people that attend these ceremonies, there isn't an ounce of fat on them in the first place.
No.
And also, they could more than afford to pay for it.
But it's the goodie bag, isn't it?
It is.
Have you ever seen what's in the one for the Oscars?
Outstanding. It is absolutely amazing that these people get given so many things.
Yeah.
I would be really grateful for dinner at Dolly's Diner. if anyone's offering a free.
There's an opportunity for Dolly's.
Yeah. But £8,200 worth of Botox is on offer. So I would be...
Botox is that?
A lot, trust me on that. And I would be dipping into those and
your
taking
face
those
would just go like that, wouldn't it? It wouldn't stop with that amount. Oh, can't bear it. Can't bear to think about it.
There's nothing wrong with
Simon
that.
Cowell's had a lot of Botox lately.
You can have too much.
Well, maybe he had one of the goodie bags last year.
Maybe.
Yeah, subtlety is everything when it comes to it. But I do think it's quite amazing that these very rich people are given a lot of expensive gifts for turning up to something which they may or may not win an award.
No, fair point.
And
we're out of time.
We are, because you had a super story about pulling faces, but people will have to read the Telegraph to find out what it is.
Afraid so. Pulling faces to dogs.
Yes.
Basically it.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll leave you to it. Thank you both very much indeed. Have a happy breakfast when you get home.
Let's bring you up to date. Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of short-changing Scotland's NHS by £17.6 billion since 2008. The Scottish Tory finance spokeswoman says the First Minister of Scotland oversaw the staggering underfunding. Pre-pandemic figures show that from 2008 up to 2020, spending per head on the health in Scotland compared to England decreased from being 15% higher to just 3% higher. The Scottish Government says it remains fully committed to supporting the health and social care sector.
The United States has shot down a Chinese spy balloon. It's suspected of carrying out surveillance of sensitive military sites. Fighter jets brought it down over the Atlantic off the coast of South Carolina. Yesterday, 3 airports were closed and airspace restricted in the southeast of the country after President Biden vowed to take care of it.
The Nurses' Union has called on the Prime Minister to make a new pay offer in order to avoid upcoming planned strikes. The head of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen, says a meaningful offer could avert the action. The NHS is facing what many are calling the biggest strike day that the service has ever seen, as tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance staff in England are set to walk out tomorrow and Tuesday.
And people who were evacuated from their homes following a security scare in a town in Derbyshire are now able to go back home. A number of people had to leave their houses in Belper and roads were closed after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosive offences. Derbyshire police said they found a number of suspicious items, but it's not being treated as a terrorist incident.
Now, the final ever edition of Happy Valley is upon us on the BBC after 6 weeks of nail-biting drama.
Yes, now from an elaborate prison escape to a pharmacist murdering his neighbour with a rolling pin, apparently. Viewers are eager to find out how the interconnecting subplots will weave together.
And all of this comes as news to Stephen because he has not watched any of it. But there are those of us who have. And last Sunday's episode finished with Tommy Lee Royce, he's the villain of the piece, revealing his plans to flee to Spain with his son Ryan, with the police no closer to closing the net on the escaped convict. I'm just going to say, before we go to our showbiz reporter, Mary, who said she's mad with us for discussing this, Mary and everybody else, we're not going to tell you what happens at the end because we don't know. That's the whole point. It's keeping us on tenterhooks.
Morning, guys. I fully agree with Mary. There's just been this whole tuggle on social media where people are like, don't talk about it, let's just watch it. And even sources at BBC One have come out and said, actually, don't ruin it for international viewers in America because Happy Valley's quite big over there. And they have to wait till May until season 3 comes out. So they said, whatever happens tonight, refrain from discussing it on social media. But we all know social media is like the wild, wild west. And BBC One have had such a big following for Happy Valley. James Norton, I've followed his career for many years, and this is one of the most darkest characters he's played, but he's played it so well. And
sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, those of us who have watched it know for the first 2 episodes recently, I don't think he had any dialogue at all. I think he had about maybe 10 words to say in 2 episodes. But it was his whole body language, his presence that made him menacing without saying anything. What a great actor.
So powerful in this role. And it's going to be missed. Sergeant Catherine Kaywood, again, another loved character on screen with this. You've seen her journey of grief and also her trying to get her own back on Tommy Lee Royce, but it's going to be the final showdown between them today. Sarah Lancashire said she's not actually going to miss the role because she feels like it should have been for a younger person. She's been brilliant. Yeah, she has been. She's now 60 and she says it's just been really taxing on her, but she said she's going to look at the character with fond memories. Tonight's going to be an extended episode, but I think even though it's about Tommy Lee Royce and her, I think all eyes is going to be on Ryan. Yes. Because it's going to be, is he going to go off into the sunset with his father to Marbella? I doubt it, because he's going to be learning the truth about his mum. I'm going
to keep quiet because I've got a theory about what actually happens at the end, but I'm not going to upset Mary and everybody else by saying what it is.
I've seen a preview.
Have you seen the whole episode and the ending? I haven't seen the whole episode,
haven't seen the ending yet. I've just only seen previews, but I think viewers will not be disappointed. It's a good end to the story, and it's been gripping. It's been one of the fine homegrown dramas we've had, and I just think it's one of those things. It's going to be missed off TV screens.
Oh, you've teed it up beautifully, Steph. For everybody to be on that, except Stephen, to be on BBC One this evening.
It's going to be at 9 o'clock. Watch it. You won't be disappointed.
No.
Yes. What are we watching tonight? Squid Games, I think. There you go. There you go.
We'll tell you about it tomorrow.
But do you know what? I think, Stephen, what's happening is a lot of people are now watching it again from the start, so you still have a chance to watch it.
We can still do it. There you go. Stephanie, thank you. Now, coming up, we're going to be talking about Yorkshire puddings. We'll tell you why in a minute.
Hello, good morning. It's a sunny Sunday ahead and dry for most of us, albeit a little bit chillier, a little bit less mild than it has been through some recent days. The reason for the calm weather is this whacking great big area of high pressure that is going to be very high indeed. Could see pressure of around 1048, 1049. So although that's not quite record breaking for February, it is very high nonetheless. As a result, very calm conditions across the bulk of the UK. Yesterday's fronts now cleared away towards the south, and then there's plenty of winter sunshine across much of the UK. Now the sunshine is going to be a little bit hazy at times. That's because there will be some high-level cloud pushing through, but we are going to have mostly light winds. Despite the fact that there will be plenty of sunshine and light winds, temperatures on paper are actually down a couple of degrees compared to yesterday, but in the winter sunshine it should still feel relatively pleasant. As we go through the end of the day, there'll be little change across much of England and Wales, holding on to the clear skies here. Further north, though, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture, and the cloud will be thick enough for a few spots of rain, and we'll see some blustery winds developing too. Across England and Wales, under the clear skies and with light winds, temperatures are going to take quite a drop, so a fairly widespread frost. Could see even towns and cities falling below freezing, and some freezing fog patches to watch out for first thing Monday morning here as well. As we go through Monday itself then, a bright start for much of England and Wales, but you can see that cloud is gradually going to push its way in from the northwest, so many places turning somewhat cloudier. Staying quite cloudy for Scotland and Northern Ireland, still gusty, blustery winds at times and a few spots of rain. Perhaps some brightness towards the north of Scotland, and here that's actually where the highest temperatures are likely to be on Monday, could just about get into double figures. Elsewhere, temperatures similar to today, but with the cloud and the slightly blustery winds, perhaps feeling a touch less warm. As we go through the rest of the week, there'll be some further changeable weather across northern parts, staying drier, brighter and sunnier further south, but quite chilly at times with some overnight frosts and some further fog to watch out for.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
I wasn't given a realistic chance. Well, that's how Liz Truss assessed her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Sunday, the 5th of February. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Angela. These are your top stories.
Former Prime Minister Liz Truss claims that she lacked support when in the job and says her radical tax cuts weren't given a chance to succeed.
Police searching for Nicola Bulley say they've found a key witness as her family dismissed police claims that she fell into the River Wire whilst walking her dog.
Tensions mount between America and China after the suspected spy balloon is shot down. President Joe Biden calls it a national security threat, whilst China says it's an overreaction to a simple weather balloon.
Loads of you getting in touch this morning. Keep your thoughts coming through by emailing us gbviews@gbnews.uk.
I wasn't given a realistic chance. That's how Liz Truss has assessed her disastrous reign as Prime Minister.
Yeah, in an article for the Sunday Telegraph today, the former Prime Minister discusses a potential return to frontline politics, but opens up about her radical tax-cutting budget, which, of course, contributed to her downfall.
So let's cross over now to Camilla Tominey, who I'm sure is going to be covering this in more detail on her own show later this morning. Camilla, good morning. You're the one who wrote the story, which is on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph today. Presumably that means you've had an opportunity of looking into the eyes of Liz Truss. What did you see there? What are her political ambitions?
Morning, Angela and Stephen. To be fair, it was a different Camilla on the Telegraph. It was my colleague Camilla Turner who wrote up the op-ed on the front page, although we were all party to it last night and quite excited that the former Prime Minister had chosen the Telegraph in which to write this piece. 4,000 words of explaining what went wrong, but what she also thought went right, I thought was quite interesting. There'll be some who support Trussonomics, who say that the Conservatives have lost touch with their core principles of low tax, of stimulating growth, of that kind of Thatcherite agenda that seems to have been abandoned in recent years. And there'll be others, perhaps more towards the left side of the party. Liz Truss accuses them of triangulating with Labour on economic policy, who think actually this is not a wanted intervention. It doesn't really help Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt's cause, does it, when they're pushing higher taxes and higher spending, to have the former Prime Minister sort of say that that's the wrong approach and to accuse them of being in hock with so-called Treasury orthodoxy. But it is interesting to hear from her. She laid low after she was spectacularly ejected from office. What was it, 47, 49 days that she was in power? And it's interesting to see her so fulsomely and convincingly try and persuade the public that actually she was right, even though the execution was wrong. I think some people will think fair on her for holding Tory feet to the flames, and others will think this is actually a bit too much. It's too much too soon, and she isn't in a position to preach, not least because of the economic calamity that the mini-budget caused last autumn.
Well, this is part of the issue. I mean, you read the op-ed and, you know, it highlights that she does criticise, though not by name, Rishi Sunak. She criticises Theresa May. She criticises Boris Johnson. Now, whichever way you look at it, though, they were all much more successful prime ministers than she was.
I think that's pretty fair comment, Stephen. I think what this is all about is saying that there is an alternative narrative to this status quo that isn't just a Tory party problem. It's been a problem for successive governments in the sense of the Treasury being afraid of doing anything too different. She does admit in the opinion piece that she got things wrong. She reiterates what she said during the leadership race, which was she wasn't a good and slick communicator. But I think people will look at it and say, it actually caused such a market shock. They may be incredulous when she claims that she wasn't prepared by the Treasury or civil servants for the economic fallout. I think some people will be scratching their heads saying, well, is that quite right? Interestingly, I'm going to have the economist Roger Bootle on my show a bit later, and I'm going to ask him, look, does this all stack up? Is it really the case that a Prime Minister wasn't warned that some of the calamity that could have come from the mini-budget? It sounds a bit unbelievable to me.
Camilla, you're someone who's got your ear to the ground in the House of Commons. What is the gossip around the corridors and the tea rooms about what Liz Truss's future is likely to be now in politics?
Well, she's not going anywhere, and she's definitely standing again in her seat in Suffolk. And I think, actually, there are a lot of Tories who are warm to this idea of her presenting a different economic narrative. It's no secret that among the Tory backbenchers, they hate this high tax agenda. They don't think it plays well with the electorate. They want to stimulate growth in a more kind of Thatcherite and Lawsonian way. And they think that Trussonomics were a good thing, but badly executed. So I think there'll be people, particularly on the right, who'll be grateful that she isn't basically shutting up and going away, that she's speaking up in favour of what she thought would realign our economics. But of course, you're then going to have Sunak fans and Hunt fans saying this is the last thing we need. We're meant to be looking like we're a party united. The only way we're going to win the next election is by proving that. And therefore, they'll see this as unhelpful, not least when Jeremy Hunt's laid out his own economic agenda. He said the only tax cut we need right now is a cut to inflation. He doesn't want another Tory, and a prominent Tory of that, speaking on the front page of the Telegraph, the so-called Tory graph, in economic terms that are completely opposed to what he's going to come up with in his budget in March.
But isn't there an argument to say, actually, I mean, Trussonomics is not Thatcherite or Lawsonian in the sense that that was very much a reward to the people when the economy was doing well. I mean, what she was suggesting with Kwasi Kwarteng was, well, let's reward the people, particularly the best paid, but we're going to borrow money to do it. I mean, that's the big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, true. This idea of unfunded tax cuts and then not having extraordinary cuts to public spending. I mean, there's a big school of thought within government and beyond that actually the government's spending too much money, that Boris Johnson's chequebook was too big, and actually with furlough, so was Rishi Sunak's. But I think they'll also point to the fact that under Lawson, taxes were cut and there wasn't a 45p top rate, although I've got Charlie Faulkner on the show as well, Labour's former Attorney General, and he'll probably be arguing in favour of some of these Tory economics because they like high tax as well, high tax and spend. But interestingly, of course, she makes the point that that 45p rate wasn't in existence for the entire time that Tony Blair was in government. So it wasn't quite as scary a prospect as everybody made out. But she's basically saying it was not just the Bank of England, but the media and indeed elements of her own party that turned against her on all this.
Yes. Well, it sounds as if you're going to have a really lively programme today, Camilla. Do you want to tell us what else is in the programme besides Liz Truss and economics?
Well, because also on top of all of this, of course, the Brexit debate still rages. It was the 3rd anniversary of our exit from the EU on Tuesday. So during the week, I spoke to a number of Tory Spartans about whether they think Brexit has been a success or a failure. That makes for a very interesting watch. I'm also going to be speaking to Professor Matt Goodwin, who's the Professor of Politics at the University of Kent, who does a lot of our polling. GB News polling suggesting that actually viewers aren't as in favour of Brexit as they might have been. We'll be revealing and discussing the findings a little later, but do tune in from 9:30.
We certainly will. Camilla,
we will
thanks
indeed.
very much indeed.
Thanks a lot.
Let's bring you up to date with some of the other stories this morning at 9:08, and Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of shortchanging the NHS in Scotland by nearly £18 billion since 2008. The Scottish Tory finance spokesperson says the First Minister oversaw staggering underfunding. Pre-pandemic figures show that from 2008 to 2020, spending per head on health in Scotland compared to England was 15% higher, but went down to just 3% higher. The Scottish Government says it is fully committed to supporting the health and social care sector.
Well, the US has finally shot down that Chinese spy balloon that it's suspected of carrying out surveillance of sensitive military sites. Fighter jets brought it down over the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of South Carolina. Well, earlier yesterday, 3 airports were closed and airspace restricted in the southeast of the country after the president, Joe Biden, vowed to take care of it.
The Nurses' Union has called on the Prime Minister to make a new pay offer in order to avoid upcoming strikes. The head of the RCN, Pat Cullen, says a meaningful offer could avert the action. She also actually said just sitting down for talks could avert the action. The NHS is facing what many are calling the biggest strike day the service has ever seen, as nurses and ambulance staff in England are set to walk out tomorrow and Tuesday.
Residents who were evacuated following a security scare in a town in Derbyshire are now able to return to their homes. A number of people had to leave their houses in Belper, and nearby roads were also closed after a man was arrested on suspicion of explosive offences. Derbyshire police said they found a number of suspicious items, but it's not being treated as a terrorist incident.
We're talking about loads of you getting in touch this morning. Let's have a look at airport, because at East Midlands Airport today they're holding a jobs fair this weekend, actually, trying to get plenty of people back into the industry, ready for a busy summer period, hopefully. Linda says, I think smaller airports are the way to go. I live in Kent. We used to have Manston Airport. It was fantastic. Less hassle, less travelling, no queues.
And B says, West of Ireland Airport, small but excellent. However, it would do even better if Ryanair ran it on time.
Yes. But also, we're talking with Nigel and Claire about a full English breakfast. The head of the Breakfast Association says cheap fry-ups are bad for the profession. And
they're too cheap.
Should be paying about 50 quid a head. Anyway, Debs in Stoke-on-Trent says, we have a full English every Friday in Tunstall Market. It's delicious, excellent quality. You can have a fried egg or grilled cheese, and it comes with white, thick toast with a good cup of tea, and it's less than £11 for 2 people. Long may it continue.
Crikey, that is a bargain,
Now, at that
isn't it?
price, I'd take you for breakfast.
Would you?
I would, yeah.
Oh, but it's got to be less than that.
It's got to be.
It can't be more than that.
It's £5.50 a head. That's my.
That's all right. That's your limit, is it?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, last of the big spenders. Oh goodness. Right. Well, more to come, including stay with us as we celebrate. Yes, it's real National Yorkshire Pudding Day. We'll tell you how to make them.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already depressed.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very warm welcome back, listening to and watching Breakfast with Stephen and Angela.
Yet now, keeping fit and active at any age, of course, has proven mental and physical health benefits. And as we get older, maintaining exercise habits helps to improve health and reduce the risk of heart disease and stroke.
Now, the fitness company Be Great Fitness is promoting this message and keeping care home residents healthy and active in North East Lincolnshire through tailored fitness sessions.
Well, Anna Riley has the story.
Moving and grooving from their armchairs, residents at Ladysmith Care Home in Grimsby are keeping healthy and active in their later years. The physical health scheme is run by Be Great Fitness, who stress the importance of maintaining mobility for the over 65s.
It's absolutely crucial, you know, you have to have some form of regular activity, whether it is walking or whether it's seated exercise. They say if you don't move it, you lose it, and it's very true. So when we're coming in here, our work is crucial because this is helping the residents to break up the week, keep active and carry on moving because, like I said, if they don't, they'll start to see lack of mobility, they'll start to see joints freeze up and they'll start to see a big decline in their health.
And the residents here certainly enjoy the sessions.
I like to see everybody enjoying themselves.
Well, because we're all getting old, aren't we? We've got to keep active.
They're all the good people. Yeah.
Why do you keep moving, dear? You've got to keep moving.
Well, I think you live longer if you're older. Keeps your bones strong. Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
It's like everybody. They're all friendly. The carers are lovely. Well, I think it's good.
The activity coordinators at the care home say the fitness classes are important for both mental and physical health.
It's easy to sit around and get stiff and get sores and give up, so we can't try and keep them as mobile as we can. We do netball with them, archery, bowling, anything. Boccia.
Oh, I love it, absolutely love it, especially seeing how much they enjoy it. It just makes you feel better about yourself and that you're doing a good job with them.
So residents here are fighting fit with an exercise regime that's really working out for them. Anna Riley, GB News, Grimsby.
A bit of boxing. Who would have thought it?
Exactly. You know the old saying, keep moving, you can't hit a moving target.
There you go, you see.
Keep moving. Anyhow, National Yorkshire Pudding Day, would you believe it, has been celebrated on the first Sunday in February in Britain ever since 2007, apparently.
I never knew.
No.
Yorkshire pudding. I love a Yorkshire pudding. They're an essential part, of course, of a traditional British roast, usually served on a Sunday.
Originally, the Yorkshire Pud was served as a cheap first course with thick gravy to fill up, so that diners wouldn't need too much food in the next course. Oh, cheapskate.
But what is the secret to that perfect Yorkshire pud? Let's talk to
we're
Chef.
going to find out.
Oh, yes. Theo Michaels is here. Good morning.
Morning, both.
And you brought them.
I've brought Yorkshire puddings. It's never too early for
No.
Yorkshire puddings.
No. Oh, now look, is that the secret? Having that? Not yet. They're cold. I wonder. No, you can eat and we'll talk. Is that the secret? To have that little dip in the middle so you can pour the gravy in.
I think you want these to be like a batter well, don't you? You want a dough well to fill up with lots of unctuous gravy that you can have with your Sunday roast.
Yeah, I had an uncle who made absolutely fabulous Yorkshire puds, and nobody else in the family could beat him. What is the secret, Theo, to making the perfect Yorkshire pud? Because not everybody gets it right.
Two big secrets, I would say, which we're going to let out of the bag now. Number one, super hot oven. So you want an oven at like 220 fan, 240 Celsius, really hot. Don't open the oven once you put them in. So it's a bit like a souffle. Once you pop them in the oven, keep it closed. It's only 15 minutes. Yeah. But the other real big secret is to use a cupcake tin, for instance, fill it with a bit of oil and put that in your oven 10, 15 minutes before you pour the batter in.
As long as that... Won't it smoke? Won't it burn?
No, you want it really hot. You want... As soon as you pour that batter into those little cupcake things with a bit of oil in there, you want them bubbling straight away, and that's going to...
I love a Yorkshire pud, right?
Well, so we can see.
Yes, but what I have to confess, I buy the frozen ones and cook this. I cheat.
I'm not going to judge.
No,
I
but,
won't judge.
But you've made these, right? They taste so different.
Of course they do.
Is this different good or different bad?
No, different good.
I'm worried for a moment.
Well, you made it in your own kitchen, didn't you?
In my very own kitchen. In fact, I made these in advance and I froze them.
All right.
So you can actually get ahead of the Sunday roast game by making them in advance, pop them in the freezer.
Oh, they look amazing. What are the ingredients? I mean, give us the recipe.
OK, so this could not be easier. You have 3 ingredients: milk, eggs, flour.
Yeah.
That's it. You can add a bit of seasoning to it,
In what
of course.
proportions, though?
So I do 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of milk, so equal quantities, 3 eggs. And that will give you about 12 to 15 Yorkshire puddings about this size.
I mean, it's a pancake batter, isn't it?
100%. It's a pancake batter. But this is like 18th century recipe. In fact, it used to be called dripping pudding. Then it was a lady in, I think we mentioned, 1742, Hannah Glass, who wrote a cookbook called The Simple Art of Cooking Made Plain. And she coined the phrase Yorkshire puddings.
Why Yorkshire? Do we know?
Yeah.
I think she stemmed from Yorkshire, so I think she just took ownership.
But they used to be served, as we said at the beginning there, as a first course. But they could also be served as a pudding, couldn't they?
Well, this is it. So there's a lot of variations to these. Yeah. So you've got something called a Dutch baby pancake, which is in essence just a huge Yorkshire pudding, 1 Yorkshire pudding cooked in a frying pan. They were used as occasionally used as a sweet version as well.
You see that? Yours, I have to say, even though obviously they're not sweet at all, that with a bit of strawberry cream, custard, a bit of ice cream, that would just work.
Oh, I could bit of cream in there.
Yeah.
Scone.
Yeah, but would you need to put sugar, if you're going to serve it as a dessert, would you need to put a bit of sugar in the batter?
You could put a tiny bit of sugar in the batter. Equally, I think if you've got a real sweet topping, you probably don't need it.
I think it would work with that.
In fact, I would say double up...
Without the sugar?
Yeah, I think so.
I would say double up the volume.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then and save some's pudding as well. Indulge.
Yeah. Why do we get it so wrong? Because a lot of people really mess up a Yorkshire.
I don't understand why, if I'm brutal. I mean, it is the simplest... I think it's because a lot of people, they miss out a couple of those very small techniques of getting the oil hot first in the oven beforehand and peeking. No peeking when it's in the oven. Let it sit there for 15 minutes.
Just turn the light on if you've got one and see it. Watch it right.
This is it. This is it. It's better than the TV. And I think that's it. And if you follow that rule, you can't go wrong.
And you don't have to serve them just with meat, do you?
No, well, as you said, Adja, traditionally, for the sort of poorer population, a few centuries ago, this was part of the staple diet because it was cheaper than chips, in fact, and a bit of dripping, a bit of gravy to soak it up. Yeah. And I love recipes like this that are born out of necessity, like they were born for a reason. And yet today, hundreds of years later, they're still as ever popular.
Here's a thought. Have you ever done that? You mentioned the Dutch pancake idea, but I'll tell you what I've never had and I really fancy is a roast dinner inside a big Yorkshire pudding.
What? Stephen, I am pleased you've raised this.
Oh, good.
Now, I don't know if we've got a screenshot of my latest book, and this is a shameless plug, but I wrote a book, came out recently, Grazing and Feasting Boards, and that is exactly one of the boards we've got. It's a Sunday roast, and we've got 2 huge Yorkshire puddings, where we've filled one with all the meats and everything else, and then we've got another one that we've filled with all the vegetables, lashings of gravy, and you can just rip and dive.
You have teed up Sunday lunch today for the people.
Sunday lunch just got good.
Yes, Theo, that was smashing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Lovely. Look, that is it from us too. Thanks for your company this morning. Up next, we're heading to Westminster for a deep dive into the politics with Camilla Tominey.
Have a good week. Bye now.
Hello, good morning. It's a sunny Sunday ahead and dry for most of us, albeit a little bit chillier, a little bit less mild than it has been through some recent days. The reason for the calm weather is this whacking great big area of high pressure that is going to be very high indeed. Could see pressure of around 1048, 1049. So although that's not quite record breaking for February, it is very high nonetheless. As a result, very calm conditions across the bulk of the UK. Yesterday's fronts now cleared away towards the south, and then there's plenty of winter sunshine across much of the UK. Now the sunshine is going to be a little bit hazy at times. That's because there will be some high-level cloud pushing through, but we are going to have mostly light winds. Despite the fact that there will be plenty of sunshine and light winds, temperatures on paper are actually down a couple of degrees compared to yesterday, but in the winter sunshine it should still feel relatively pleasant. As we go through the end of the day, there'll be little change across much of England and Wales, holding on to the clear skies here. Further north, though, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a cloudier picture, and the cloud will be thick enough for a few spots of rain, and we'll see some blustery winds developing too. Across England and Wales, under the clear skies and with light winds, temperatures are going to take quite a drop, so a fairly widespread frost. Could see even towns and cities falling below freezing, and some freezing fog patches to watch out for first thing Monday morning here as well. As we go through Monday itself then, a bright start for much of England and Wales, but you can see that cloud is gradually going to push its way in from the northwest, so many places turning somewhat cloudier. Staying quite cloudy for Scotland and Northern Ireland, still gusty, blustery winds at times and a few spots of rain. Perhaps some brightness towards the north of Scotland, and here that's actually where the highest temperatures are likely to be on Monday, could just about get into double figures. Elsewhere, temperatures similar to today, but with the cloud and the slightly blustery winds, perhaps feeling a touch less warm. As we go through the rest of the week, there'll be some further changeable weather across northern parts, staying drier, brighter and sunnier further south, but quite chilly at times with some overnight frosts and some further fog to watch out for.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess I've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.